I'll say it's a matter of getting the consistency down. Once the consistency's there, it feels weird when you don't do one a week.
Right.
It's weird. It's weird like that.
You've
But
gotten used to it.
yeah, and then like John said, the COVID hiccup, we could call it, the COVID break, that kind of threw a wrench into it because we had one break originally a year ago when we were transitioning from doing it at my mom's office to then trying to find a space that we could do it at out here.
Right.
So it was, those transitional periods were kind of the only breaks that we've really had. Besides that, we've stayed consistent 43 episodes in. And
Wow. Yeah. No.
little by little, we just,
Yeah.
like we always say, we just want to have good conversations with everybody and just
Right.
make sure that everybody gets something out of each episode, whether that's law advice, whether that is somebody that has something to give in forms of training or prepping for
Right.
something.
Right.
Oski was on, Omar, he was talking about meal prep and how he became a chef and lived in Egypt for a while. So we try to keep it very rounded
Right.
and in
Right.
everybody's
Right.
court at some point.
Yeah, I've even heard some of the guys talking about just like cultural issues right now. And I
Mhm.
think one guy, I forget who it was, somebody was talking about just the way that growing up in the phone generation has changed the way people
Yes.
So
socially
that
interact
was
with
Jimmy
each
last
other.
week.
Yeah, Jimmy was
Right?
great.
Yeah.
So, and that's so true. I find that with young law students too,
Mhm.
is the skill set is reduced in some ways.
Oh, I'm sure. So let me just kind of just frankly, get it out and say it. So first time I met you was at Bev's, like a lot of relationships that have been met. So
Every guest.
yeah, every guest.
Every guest has come through Babs.
So let's
Steve is looking for some sort of percentage on this. So,
yes, he is.
you
He
know.
is. Listen, we throw out Bev's every time. We'll throw memberships his way. That's the best we could do right now.
Right.
But it kind of goes to show you that, as a side note, the gym is more than just a gym, especially
Right.
our gym.
Yes.
Maybe a Planet Fitness or those gyms. Those are gyms. They suck.
Yeah.
They're just kind of
Yeah. Well,
conventional.
I wouldn't even. I think you're being kind putting Planet Fitness even in. I think they're self-described as not a gym.
Yeah, they're
Yes,
just called themselves
yes.
a gym.
And I have a funny Planet Fitness story for you too. With it,
I do want to hear that. I
Okay.
want to hear that right after this. I just want to get out the way and just say, how old are you?
Oh,
Come
do we
on,
have
just
to
say
go there.
Give me a bracket
on camera.
Yes,
We-
yes.
Oh,
Give me a
no,
bracket.
Come on.
Give me a bracket.
I'll give you a bracket. It's over 55. Bro.
Okay,
Yeah.
so at over 55 years old,
Yeah.
young, let's say that,
Thank
over
you.
55 years
Yes,
young,
yes.
you train harder than 90% of the
Thank
people
you.
that I see.
Thank
And that was always, you and Chef, always inspiring to me to watch
you.
you guys train. I
Thank
mean,
you.
these dudes lacing up their belts, getting ready for leg day. I sit there, I go, what am I doing? I'm being a bitch right now.
am I doing?
lifting light over here.
Somehow we've been doing it. I've been at Bev since I guess the mid 90s.
Wow.
The late 90s, maybe 97 or something like that.
Was it Bev's then or was it Gold's?
So it was always sort of Bev's, it was Gold's, it was Powerhouse. I think he's franchised with different people through the years, but it was always Bev's.
Yeah.
It was always Steve and Bev. And then before that, we can kind of talk about, when I competed in bodybuilding, it wasn't out of Bev's, it was out of, Bev's wasn't around back then when we rode horse and buggies, to the arena. But
Lifting by candlelight.
yes, yeah, kerosene lamps. You looked
And
great.
barrels.
If you hung a kerosene lamp up high enough, it was like straight shadows
Great
down.
cascading.
Yeah. Oh man, you look fantastic. So
So now you did shows. Let's get right into you as an individual getting into bodybuilding because you're a very fit individual.
thank you.
Always have been that I've known you.
Thanks, brother.
And the other crazy thing is you're probably the fittest attorney that I know.
Thank you.
most
Thank you.
most jacked attorney I know. But
Mm.
let's get to the roots of like what got you into bodybuilding when you were younger.
So I think that a lot of the people who get into bodybuilding get into it either because they're in some way dissatisfied, I think, with their bodies, whether they're like really fat when they're young or really skinny. I was a skinny guy. I wasn't naturally, a muscular guy. And so, I remember looking when I was a little kid, and I find this is a generational thing. You guys are probably too young to really relate to this, but guys of my generation, comic books were actually like a big thing. Because there was no television, there was really nothing in the way of social media or any of the things that, there was no streaming service. So I remember looking just as a little kid at some of the, the physiques in the comic books, which were like, that's the way you wanted to look. And you kind of aspired to that. And I think also sort of like the heroic, the sort of the super heroic kind of quality to it.
Yeah.
So when you're a little kid, you kind of gravitate to that. And there are some people, I think that just really resonates with more than others. And so you start kind of going down that path. And then part of it is genetics. And I guess so if you have good genetics to build some muscle, you're going to stick with it. I guess if you have poor genetics and you're not really gaining muscle, that's where they kind of fall off. But
Yeah.
I had good enough genetics. I started out, and I've never said this before. I actually started, this is the first time I've ever said this.
This is a first.
This is a first. So I started out, when I was like 15 years old, I ordered the Charles Atlas course. Okay.
My grandfather used to talk about Charles Atlas all the time. Whenever I brought up Bevs or weightlifting, he goes,
Right.
Charles Atlas is the first one, the original.
Right? I mean, this was before Weider. This was before Bob Hoffman. This was before anybody. And Charles Atlas was sort of like the original physique. So you would look at this guy and you'd say, wow, I think he had like 17-inch calves, 17-inch biceps, 17-inch neck. Perfect symmetry was sort of the look. And so it was dynamic tension was the principle. You ever hear of that?
I have. I don't. So I guess just time under tension.
So what it
loaded.
is it's a isometric through movement, through a range of motion. So you would use your left hand against your right hand, using your tricep with the left and using your bicep with the right, going through a curl, what is simultaneously both a curl and a tricep push down
Gotcha.
at the same time. And so there'd be all those sort of things using body weight and stuff. Because I was 15 years old, I had really no weights. And then I got into it. My arms started growing, and I had some decent genetics for it. And then my cousin, who was a bodybuilder, he was a little, maybe 3 or 4 years older than me, took me and bought me my first set of weights,
Nice.
which was at Sears. It was one of the, the sand-filled.
Okay.
Remember those vinyl sand-filled, like blue sand-filled?
I've seen them.
Yeah,
I've never
seen them.
touched
You've
one.
never touched
Never touched one.
You'd hear it. You can hear it because the sand would kind of, go around inside the weight.
The most retro
And
thing
so-
I had was a Bowflex at my dad's house.
Okay. All right. So
since-
yes, and that there's still Bowflex is still
Yeah,
around
yeah.
now. I'm actually using Bowflex adjustable dumbbells in my basement now, but
Bowflex, send the check to Rick.
yes, please,
Send the coat hangers.
yeah. So far, I haven't gotten anything from them. Other
Yeah, it's
than,
bullshit.
I managed to get like one of the last Bowflex adjustable dumbbell sets before the COVID rush.
We're
kinda
going to
sold
talk
them out.
about the
But-
lunacy of that. But yeah,
So-
tell me the sand dumbbells.
So the sand dumbbells and it was like, not even Olympic set. It's one of the skinny little bar. And so I started working out with that when I was like 16, and then joined a gym when I was 17. First gym, I think I trained at like a YMCA in Queens for a while because I grew up in like Mineola and Queens, and worked at a YMCA for a while, and then joined a place called Pumping Iron, which was on Jamaica Avenue in Queens Village. And Eddie Perez was one of, Eddie? Eddie was one of the owners. Eddie'd be good on this show.
Maybe
at
by
some
face.
point.
Is he somebody who's still
He
around?
tried-
in the
yeah,
fitness
he's
industry?
around. You see him at Bev sometimes.
So then I probably know him by face.
So, morning guy.
I
So-
know everybody over there.
so Eddie and a few other guys owned this gym in Queens Village, and so I trained there. The biggest guy, Freddie Ortiz, I think I had seen there once. If that name means anything to you, these are old school bodybuilders. Harold Poole. If you remember, Harold Poole was an IFBB pro back in the day. Unbelievable physique.
I'm getting a lesson right now.
Yeah,
Here's what I'm
yeah,
getting. I'm getting a lesson.
yeah. I'm taking you to school, brother.
That's okay, please.
So Harold Poole, you could look him up online, and he was another guy who was just an amazing physique for the time. I remember seeing him and seeing these, it was like almost like Rick Valenti's triceps,
I do know that,
and
yes.
just like hanging off the back of his arm. And I'm saying to
Just
myself,
meat slabs.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a ham. It's a tumor. You
Slice
should
it off.
see a doctor about that. That's got to come
What
off.
the fuck is growing on the back of your arm?
What? So that was all inspiring to me, and so that gym closed and it moved and became Valencia in Elmont.
I have heard of
Yes.
Valencia before.
Which is still
People
there
have mentioned
now.
that on the show before a
Couple
couple of
times.
times.
A lot of some of the
Didn't Aaron, huge fat loser? I think
believe
Aaron
so.
did too.
Yeah, I believe so.
so you know Ron Norman.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, very
so,
well.
So Ron was one of the guys who was training at Valencia. There was a bunch of us who are now at Bev's, but who started out at Valencia. And Ron competed out of Valencia back in the day. A guy named Bobby Strom, Mike Ashley, if that name.
Yeah. It's kinda like-
another IFBB pro.
It's kind of like all the guys from Infinity coming over to Bev's too. Then
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
There
remember
was like
that
a
there was a
migration.
transitionary period when
Right.
Infinity closed.
and Mr. America's in Farmingdale.
No, I didn't know that one.
So I'll tell you about that in a second. But that was Steve Mahalik's gym, if that name means anything.
The
And
last
sort of
name
like
does.
the old guys who are listening, these
He
names
directed-
will mean,
he directed that on video. He looked right in the lens.
Yeah, right in the
No.
lens because they'll know this stuff. But yeah, so we all kind of migrated. I competed out of Valencia, and I did a number of NPC shows back
Mhm.
then. And I have a bunch of trophies collect and dust at home from when I was like 20 years old and stuff. And I loved it. I loved the competing. I loved everything about it. That's why 40 years later, you still see me regularly at Bev's pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy that we have to say that though? Real quick,
it
like, side
is.
note.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, maybe hopefully you'll see me there. That's
Right.
wild.
Right.
That is
Yeah.
a sad existence that we've been subjected to because of this. That you don't know what's going to happen, and there's just so
Mhm.
much uncertainty.
Right. Right.
Not to get into that topic yet,
No,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just that hit me. That hit me right to my soul
It's a
right there. I
strange-
went,
it's a
oh,
strange
it's so
time, a
weird.
strange
I
world,
drove
man.
past the other day. Bev's is closed. I said, oh, when has
Yeah.
Bev's ever been closed? That I've been going
Right.
there since 2012.
Right. Christmas
open 24 hours
morning,
a day.
New Year's
Oh, I'm
Day.
always there.
It's absolutely.
Always there getting a pumping right for
Yeah.
the holidays.
Even if it's a
Yeah.
rest day.
Yeah, even if it's the rest
Right.
day, I just
You
go
go
there.
in and see your Bev's family.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so Valencia was a similar kind of atmosphere back then. It was a lot of hardcore lifters, kind of a family kind of unit. I loved getting out of there. John Medici, if you know that
Yeah.
name.
Nick's
And, you
dad-
know, his
Nick's
son-
dad?
Nick's dad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Nick's dad and I used to compete against each other.
Oh.
So and I see him on Facebook, and
That's awesome.
sometimes, yeah. So and
He had
trains
the ill retro hair.
Yes.
I've seen those old school pictures of him.
Yeah,
The shell top.
Yeah, yes. So we had some fun back in the time, and then I moved around a little bit, and I ultimately wound up at Bev's. There was a gym, sort of like pre-Bev's, the most hardcore gym on Long Island probably was a place called Mr. America's, and that was in Farmingdale. It was owned by Steve Mahalik. Now, Steve Mahalik was a Mr. Universe and IFBB pro. He passed away a number of years ago. He used to train with John Defendis, if that name means anything to you. So you're getting like a lot of the old school guys,
Yeah,
and
We're slowly moving up toward our time now.
yeah, little by little, we're coming along.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they were like crazy men there. Like rumors were that Mahalik would rope off with like crime scene tape the area where he was training, so that nobody could come into that space. And if anybody like dropped a weight or did anything, he would literally hurl a dumbbell across. These are the legends
Yeah.
of Mahalik back in the day. There was a guy, a good friend of mine trained there too, named Sean Perrine, who I don't
I
know
know
if
that
you,
name.
You know, so Sean became the editor-in-chief of Muscle and Fitness Flex,
Okay, that's
the
probably
Leader
why I know him.
magazines. Super great guy. Died of cancer. His mother Terry trains at our gym. You
Yes,
probably
that's right.
know her from
Yeah,
Bev's too.
I've run into her a couple times.
You know, great guy, huge loss, suddenly gone. But I remember training with him at Mahalik's, a few times doing chest. The things you remember sometimes, like where you took a particular workout. I remember training with Sean Perrine in Mahalik's doing chest. I remember doing incline benching with him. And I remember once going out to California and hanging out with him in LA, because he was out in LA doing, when Weider headquarters, pre, David Pecker, when Joe was around, it was all in LA,
Okay.
in Woodland Hills. And so I remember meeting Sean, and we went down and we trained at World Gym. And, back in the day, it was Golds and Worlds, back in the whole heyday of Venice Beach bodybuilding. And I was actually with Sean Perrine in World Gym on the day it closed its doors, its final day, the goodbye of Worlds. And Rick Valenti was there. Tommy Chong was there. If you remember, Cheech and Chong was like a comedy.
Yeah, no, I know
Yeah,
them.
the
Oh,
name.
So
he's-
Tommy Chong was
Really?
the Chong who was into with all the weed stuff that they did on camera. He was into bodybuilding. A guy named Zabo Kazuski who had like the best abs back in the day. And I remember closing the doors of World's Gym. But these are the things you sometimes remember over time. And so ultimately I wound up at Bev's, and I've been there for the full gamut since then. I've had a number of partners. You see me. So I
You shift
usually have
around.
a little crew. It's like a prison workout.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's like
Who can handle
we
the
have
workout that day?
We have a little, yeah, some take a rest and then others come back.
Start kicking it back to the curb.
So it varies around. But I've had a number of guys who've stayed with me through the years. And I train as hard as anybody. I try never to leave anything on the table, and probably like you guys, I think it's a blessing that there's a certain mindset that really consistent trainers have. And I've always found this from the very beginning, that whatever problems, whatever headaches, whatever, what didn't go wrong in the day, the case that went south, the prosecutor's giving me a hard time, whatever it is, when I park my car in that parking lot,
Yep.
and I start that short walk, I go through the
leg day room,
door, somehow in that distance, all of my cares and worries and troubles and thinking about things dissipates. And when that door opens and I come in, it is like I am fully there.
Yeah.
I am fully in the moment. There's nothing else that matters.
It's a switch that flips in your brain.
But it's such a blessing. And I don't know if we should really acknowledge that, because not everybody has that. You could see guys who train in the gym, men, women who train, they're on their phones half the time. They're not there. They're there and they're someplace else. And from the moment I'm there, I love it. And I've never used headphones. I've never, number one, they probably didn't exist when I first started training. But even besides that, I love just the feel, the sound of the gym, the sound of the weights, being immersed in the experience of it.
I almost made the weights clanking a ringtone on my phone,
did you?
like an alarm tone on my phone.
It's a good text tone.
It really
Right,
is.
yeah.
Except when it's 1
rattle.
a.m. and that sharp clank that everyone knows from Bev's hits, and it hits you right to your heart.
Somebody texts me at 1 a.m. and to whack him with the weights. Get the fuck out of here.
Not good.
With the 48-pound, 45-pound weights.
Yeah, well, that, have you actually weighed those?
48 pounds.
And they are 48.
Yeah.
Yeah, 48.
Yeah,
I've done it for a couple of them. I don't know if they're all
Really?
consistently
Right.
48 pounds.
I heard a rumor with that Bev did that on purpose so that what had to do with like her powerlifting.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody went for a new PR at a powerlifting meet, they had already done that weight.
Right. And then some.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Makes sense. I miss those plates. Although I love the Rogue plates I bought, I absolutely am in love with the Rogue plates that I bought. I bought the calibrated steel plates, the
Right.
competition plates.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
So they're this thin. There's a 45-pound plate. You
Okay.
can load them up.
Right.
And there's basically like this much bar left.
right.
I love those weights. There's just something about that rounded finish on a Bev's plate that you just grab it and you just feel
Yeah.
great.
And there's the rattle that the 45s make against
Cling,
each
cling,
other,
cling. Yeah.
is a
they're all beat
special
up.
sound.
The unsettling
right?
rattling.
Yeah.
And the
So,
flip side of those Rogue plates, though, is I have those York ones at my gym. They're
Yes.
kind of the same where they're really rounded. You grab them. It's a really nice, good feel. But they take up twice as much width
Yeah.
right,
on the
right.
barbell,
Yeah.
so you can barely fit
You
anything
can't
on
get
there.
that many
That was the
on
problem
there,
with your Rogue bumpers when I trained at your gym.
Yeah.
Super irritating. You're doing like 225 and there's this much bar left.
Looks
like you're
because
hitting
they're so
405.
thick.
Right,
It's
sure.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you run out quickly.
Is that why
old.
every CrossFitter looks like they're doing more weight?
Yeah, also because
hates
they
Yeah.
broke their back.
Yeah.
He hates CrossFit. It's hysterical.
Have you ever had a CrossFitter on this show?
No, we never will.
I thought maybe just for mockery.
That's it.
Yeah.
He's done.
That'll be the April Fool's Day episode.
Yeah.
But
So that's sort of my my background in kind of how I wound up getting to Bev's and getting into training, and obviously I was a bodybuilder before I got involved in even deciding to be a lawyer, but I competed when I was in college, and I worked 3 jobs through college. I was a personal trainer.
wait, a hard worker too? That's weird.
Yeah, wasn't that weird?
Weird.
Back in the day,
So
that was
strange.
just called like life, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I worked as a personal trainer at Bally's health clubs back in the day. There was a time when Roosevelt Field had like a Bally's health club, like a holiday spa
Okay.
in it. So
Is
I
that the
trained
same
there.
spot that Export's in?
No, it was in the place called the Petite Mall, which was a separate wing of the mall that was destroyed many years ago. And it's kind of like now where Neiman Marcus is.
Gotcha.
But so
Roosevelt Field's an interesting mall. It I don't know. There's that lower level that's just you get creep vibes. You just don't want to even be there.
Don't go down there.
No, don't go down there.
No.
They got like a quickie mart down there.
That's the black.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
black market.
Yeah,
Who
you know,
goes down there?
It's very weird. They got
Yeah.
a random UPS
Yeah. Time
down
for
there.
surveillance. Yeah.
It's super strange. I worked at Roosevelt Field Apple a couple times because they would send me from Manhasset Apple Store down over
okay.
to there to work,
Okay.
help them with shifts
crowded.
sometimes.
That's a crowded store.
Very crowded, yeah. Especially during the holidays. Although although Manhasset would get packed, we closed earlier at the time. So we would close at 7 p.m. Everyone wanted to be at our store for the holidays because we would close at 7. All the other stores would be open until 10, 11 o'clock.
Right.
Because it was the Americana rules.
Yeah.
So I would go over there sometimes, and Roosevelt Field's interesting. I trained at Export a couple times. Export's okay.
Yeah.
So it's
okay.
it's a whatever gym.
I trained there for a little while.
You're definitely contracting COVID if you go there.
Now, yes.
Yeah.
But it is 24 hours, or was 24 hours for a
Yeah.
long time. So sometimes, if I was like late on a Sunday night, if I wanted to get a workout, I would sometimes go there.
Yeah.
But we don't tell Steve that.
No, don't tell.
No.
Steve, you're not listening to this if you are.
The one,
But I get
the
that
1 hour
years
they
ago.
were closed.
Yes, right. Yeah, the 1 hour, pretty much.
So you were saying it's in a different wing of the. It was in a destroyed wing of the mall.
So I was training as training people as a personal trainer. I was an orderly in a nursing home, which is a tough job and a sobering job, and teaches you. If it teaches you nothing else, it teaches you, take care of yourself because you don't want to be old and infirm. You want to be as old and as firm as you can be.
Yeah.
To take care of yourself and stuff. Because nursing homes, at least at that time, were not where you would want to end up ultimately.
Yeah, I watched that
Still
with
don't want to.
I watched that with my grandfather recently. My grandfather passed in November, and it was tough to watch him really deteriorate.
Yeah.
Towards the end, he deteriorated very quickly, but he was having conjunctive heart failure.
Congestive heart
failure.
Yeah.
I forget. I always think it's
Yeah.
conjunctive instead of conjunctive.
Conjunctivitis. It was
That's why. Okay.
Yeah.
So he was having congestive heart failure, and he was on dialysis. My grandfather never lifted a weight in his life.
Did he have diabetes? Or
He did have diabetes,
okay, yeah.
and he also had high blood pressure. I mean, he had everything, but he never hit a weight in his life, and he rarely drank water. So the fact that my grandfather almost made it to 90 is wild.
Well, you got good genetics.
Yeah, they're okay.
So if you take
I hope
care of yourself,
my fat around the
so
midsection. That's the only worst part about my genetics. Everywhere else is pretty good.
Yeah.
But
well, you train hard. Look, I mean, I've seen you train. You train as hard as anybody in that gym.
I do.
So.
I try to balance it out because we've had brief conversations. I was 270 in high school, so for me, I was going down. My grandfather was never that heavy, but I was going down that path. And I talk to my dad all the time. I got my grandfather's side genetics, everything.
Right.
My grandfather's height, my grandfather's calves, my grandfather's leg, everything. My dad is 6'1", so I'm only 5'7".
Right.
So everything kind of came from grandpa.
Right.
So when they told me that I was pre-diabetic and that if I kept gaining weight and eating a ton of sugar, that I would need an insulin pump at some point.
You said no to that.
I said no to that, and that's kind of what started me off on this journey.
Okay.
And I've yo-yoed between shows and not, and this and that. But just on the topic of old folks' homes, just walking through there at the end of my grandfather's life and just seeing how it's tough to look at everybody in those situations and see how, I won't even say miserable, but just how you get a sense of regret.
Right.
A lot of, whether it be life experiences, things that they did not or did do.
Yeah.
And, one of those I see a lot of the times is taking care of yourself.
Right.
Because, we say it all the time and it's super corny, but you get one body.
Right.
And you got, you may look great on the outside, but who's to say you don't look good on the inside?
Right.
So I think that becomes even more of an importance as you begin to age, especially.
Absolutely.
Because, I'm going to be 29 next month.
Wow.
I'll be 29 next month. And, things are
things
are creaking that would normally creak.
3-0,
Yo, listen, I'm going on the record. I told all my friends this. I told mom this. I said, I expect on the day of my 30th birthday, I expect dirty 30 balloons everywhere. Everywhere.
Wow.
Open up a closet. They just pile up on me. I want them everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the only way it's going to make it a nice experience.
Yeah, you got to make the most of it.
But what I wanted to pull up with that is I found this photo a while ago.
Oh,
I'll put it on here.
Oh, it's so scary.
So 74-year-old sedentary man. Look at all the adipose tissue.
Right, sure.
And it's in between the muscle, right? And the 70-year-old triathlete, all the muscle. Obviously, maybe there's more fat than that. But something a lot of people don't realize. I showed this one of my clients as a radiologist. Look at the bone density difference.
Unbelievable.
So the white is the marrow, but the ring around it is the black for the bone.
Right. Yep.
Look at the difference in it from just these two legs.
Right.
It's insane.
Right.
Well,
your bones will lose calcium over time. And
you
the
never
only way to
osteoporosis, right?
Sure. And the only way to sort of contain, keep that calcium and prevent it from dissipating is strength training.
It's to give it a reason.
They've done some studies even, I think, with geriatric women where they've put them on strength training programs, and they've actually, it's the only thing that reversed the osteoporosis.
I had a client who's she was at the top of the orange zone a little bit, where she was like pre-osteoporosis. I've been training her for 2 years,
Right.
and she went back to the doctor. She's in her mid-50s, let's say. She went back for another test, and she was
Right.
at the bottom of the green zone. The doctor goes, I've never seen this happen. But, I trained her twice a week, heavy fucking weights. The form is always on point. And just like your muscles, it gave the bone a reason to get better, to
Right.
get stronger, because
Stimulated,
otherwise it
yeah.
would collapse under the load.
I don't know why I just thought of John just having her do like heavy ass shrugs.
I usually sit on her shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on, you call that
she's
a
on
lift?
the leg press sled, and he's
with a-
sitting up
A
there.
wiffle ball bat, I'm beating her over the head. You call that a squat?
Yeah. Yeah. We used to do back in Valencia. We used to do. I trained with this wild man named Phil Sausto. Phil, I'm giving you a shout out back in the day, and we would completely load up the leg press sled. I would sit on top for his set. He would sit on top of my set, screaming at each other, until it was very, very competitive. He was a little stronger in certain things. I was a little stronger in other things. But whatever you were weaker in, you wanted to try to to beat him in. And so, that kind of, really, if you have a training partner like that, it makes such a huge difference. So, and the other job, the third job that I had was as a bouncer. So I used to,
Big Rick.
throwing people out of bars, for a number of years.
It was deadlift day 2 times in a week.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
tossing
And
them
it
out.
I bounced down in a club in Island Park that years ago was called the OBI West, and then it became Huckleberries, Bryant Street, Temptations. It had all these different names as they changed, ownerships.
I feel like every bar does that. They just cycle
right,
through.
they
People
recycle.
forget about the last one.
But we had, that was a good experience, and we had a lot of crazy times down there. And at the time that I was there through college, and I was there when I was in law school. And when I was in law school, there was a fight that occurred one Friday night in the bar. I wasn't there that night. I was, with my then girlfriend, and there was a big fight, and a guy apparently got hurt. So when I came in the next week, I find out, last week there was this huge fight, and some guy got messed up. Cops show up the week after night, say all the bouncers come outside. We all go outside. We're standing in basically a lineup on Long Beach Road. The guy who had done it, the week before, I think found a place behind the refrigerator,
Slid right in.
where no one could find him.
There you go.
And he looked a little like me.
Oh, they grabbed you.
So
didn't they?
we all go. We line up. There's a guy on crutches with his leg in a cast. He looks down the line and he goes, "That's the guy," and it's me. And the cop says, "Put your hand behind your back." I'm like, "Whoa!" So I'm actually being arrested, and I'm thinking to myself, "I'm in law school, okay? I'm trying to get a job with the district attorney's office. This is not going to look good on my record." For an assault I didn't even do, So, and what an experience to see later as a criminal defense lawyer, to see how mistakes can be made, and poor eyewitness identification can result in somebody who is innocent of any crime winding up getting jammed up. So
I was about to say, did they get you down to the station and everything?
So, I had the gift of gab, so I said to the cop, "Wait a minute, whoa! Before I'm not resisting arrest. Before I put my hands behind my back, just have this guy come closer to me and get a better look, because I'm telling you right now, I was not here. I have an airtight. I know everybody says I have an alibi,
And that's when you hit him.
That's when I hit him. I have now today. That's what would happen. But I have an airtight alibi. I absolutely wasn't here. You can ask anybody. The owner. I wasn't here last week, so this is going to get dismissed at the end of the day. You want to take me to the station? I'll go, but have this guy look better. So I put enough doubt, I think, in the cop's mind that the cop goes back and talks to the guy and says, "This guy's saying that he wasn't here. Are you absolutely sure before we lock this kid up?" And the guy comes over to me, looks at me better, looks me over and
he goes to throw like a soft
Right,
punch.
yeah.
How's he doing it?
and I'm holding my breath, thinking, this could go either well or poorly. And he's like, "Nah, that's not the guy." So I was like, "Whew." So I came. So I
That's
was
cold as fuck. The other
technically
guy
I
would
was
just leave you
told
out
I
there.
was to put my hands behind my back. So I was, I guess I was technically arrested, or I wasn't
Yeah,
free to
almost.
leave. Certainly at that point.
Till that metal touches your skin.
Yeah. Then
Yeah.
okay. So it was about a hair's breadth away. It was close.
Yeah.
The metal was just about there. So but that was a great experience for a future criminal defense lawyer to kind of experience and say, "Hey, wait a minute. Not everybody who gets arrested. Had I not really protested, or had I not been articulate enough or believable enough, it could have gone the other
Mhm.
way. And who knows whether if the alibi wasn't so good, you could wind up ultimately getting convicted of something you didn't do, which would
That's
be
cold as fuck.
Mhm.
If that other guy leave you out there.
right. Yes, yeah.
Was
yeah,
he a
yeah.
friend? Was he just a random
Well,
guy
he
that
didn't
worked
really
there?
know. He had no idea that I was going to get ID'd,
Mm.
but look, we did the right. He never got popped for it.
Oh,
so,
that was it.
he was.
I was like, well, if it wasn't this guy, I don't know who it was.
Yeah. Right. Well, I
'Cause he was just there.
I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't there. I can't say.
He's
who
the best
did it.
looking guy in the lineup. I was just assuming it was him, but I can't do it
right.
now.
Thank you. So, but yeah, so I wound up leaving the bouncer days behind
As
at
many
some point,
of my friends have.
which
Yeah.
and I wouldn't even want to do it now. With back then it was you really didn't have to worry about guns,
Cell
and
phones.
some of the other and cell phones.
Cell phones,
Everything
cell
is on
phones I think
video.
are worse than guns.
Right? Yeah, there were no. So I didn't have to worry about that either. So, but there were some good, cool lessons out of that experience, and then I went to law school. I went to Hofstra.
Okay.
Which I was a psychology major undergraduate, and then decided, I wasn't wild about listening to people's problems for the rest of my life,
understand
which
that.
is really what I do now anyway, of
Yeah.
a different
Yeah.
nature. But so I went to law school. I did well. I wound up getting offered a free full ride scholarship to Hofstra. So I took it and did my 3 years at Hofstra. And maybe harkening back to the superhero days, and sort of I wanted to be a prosecutor because I wanted to I had this vision of doing the right thing and seeking justice and standing up for victims, and I did do that, and I spent 5 years as a prosecutor in Nassau County prosecuting every type of from burglaries to sexual abuse crimes to drug related
A
crimes,
wide range of
all
cases and
all
scenarios.
of the things. Yeah. And it's funny, the interviewer, and this is almost like this. I said to you guys before, this is almost like an interrogation room, right?
is.
It-
Kenji, lock the door.
We got a bright light right there, right? And
Yeah.
Kenji's locking the door.
But
And,
we rented it
know.
on Thursdays.
yeah. So where exactly were you the night that guy's leg was
Yes.
broken at the bar?
Yes, by the way,
Okay,
that's my
yeah,
father,
yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
shit now.
Luckily, there's a statute of limitations that I think prevents a prosecution there. But so the interview process was interesting because anything can happen in court, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're a
Mhm.
trial lawyer, you got to be ready for a judge who's maybe going to throw a wild card, or somebody on the other side who's going to say something or do something unexpected. So I think his idea was he wanted to see if he could rattle you. So the way that the interview worked to get a job in the DA's office at the time was that you had to do an opening statement. So you would come in, you'd prepared this. It was an opening statement about a little old lady in Hempstead. She's walking down the street and she gets her pocketbook taken. So you're a prosecutor, you're going to do the opening statement. So, I was an actor, and we could talk about that a little bit at some
Oh.
point. But so I wanted to do it in a dramatic way. So I did the whole thing. The night is September 8th, 1984.
Building the scene in
Building the
everyone's head.
scene. Lillian Harrison, 67 years old, is walking down Main Street. She's got her purse over her right shoulder. Inside that purse is $75, what she had made that day working at the office that she worked at. She hears footsteps behind her. They're distant at first, but then they get louder and closer. She turns over her right shoulder, sees a man she will never forget. The face of a man, this man, the defendant, James Johnson. So I'm doing this whole thing, and I think I'm doing pretty well with it. In the middle of it, he goes, "Just excuse me, yeah, I got to make a phone call, but just keep going." He picks up the phone. Now I'm saying he and I are the only two in the room, so I'm now basically talking to the wall,
Yeah.
doing my thing. But I don't get rattled. I stay
the
the course.
Ah, let's go. I knew you.
Gimme.
Let's go.
Yes.
You gotta do.
Right? So what else are you going to do? So a little bit further into it, he says, "Stop." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "It's getting really hot in here. Do you mind going over there and opening that window?" So I go, "No, okay." So I walk over. The window is about 5 feet wide in the old county court building. 2 big handles at the bottom of the window. So I reach, I pull on the window, doesn't budge, doesn't move. All right. Take a deep breath, and now I pull it with all of my might, every bit of strength. He goes, "You're a big guy. I would think you'd be able to open a window."
Damn.
I'm like, "Oh man, I'm going to lose this job because I can't open a window." I pull with all my might. The window doesn't open. He goes, "You know what? Just sit. All right, just sit down. Sit down." So now I sit down. My God, I'm going to blow this whole interview. He's got his head in his hand. He goes, "Listen, it says here you were an intern in this office. Is that true?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "It says you work for a guy named Dan O'Brien. Is that true?" I said, "Yes, I did." He goes, "What do you think Dan O'Brien would say if I called him on the phone right now and asked him about you?" I said, "Well, I think he'd say good things. I worked hard. I was punctual. I did memos for him, and I researched law." He said, "Okay, let's find out." Shh. Takes the phone.
Oh, that's
Dials
cold right in
the
front.
I'm sitting there. He goes, "Yeah, Dan, listen, I just had this guy in here, Rick Collins. He's throwing your name around like he's your best friend. What's up with this guy? It seems like there's something a little wrong with him." What? Women's clothes?
Oh.
Thank you. Women's clothes. Now, I have no idea what he's talking about. I have no idea. But at this point, I feel like I got nothing to lose, right? I mean, I couldn't open the window. I'm a mess.
I would have kicked the window out.
So, you know, I almost broke. So I said, he goes, "Women's clothes?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "When?" I go, "Now." He starts laughing. He goes, "I'm sitting you onto a panel. You're going to a panel." He wanted to see if he could rattle you. And when he saw I was doing okay with the opening
Because I'm
statement,
sure some people fucking sweat.
Oh, I'm sure some
yeah.
people would. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?
I've never
Aggressive under
Right.
pressure.
I don't have a brassiere
Right.
on, I swear.
Right. He wanted to see if you'd crack under the pressure. And so, when he couldn't rattle me with the making a phone call and then opening the window.
So the window didn't actually open?
The window was painted shut in 1957. The window could not be opened
I was expecting to hear you rip the paint out of the window.
Right.
As
Yeah,
if it was painted
the
shut.
whole
Man,
thing.
believe me, John, I tried. I did the very best, and I had a good deadlift then, and I still couldn't do it.
The next guy probably got it fine because you weakened it.
Maybe,
They go, "Oh
maybe.
shit!"
No, there was no moving it.
Yeah.
So it was just his way of testing to see. And so, and I loved that job. I loved being a prosecutor, and I had a number of cases where I felt very, very good about helping people who, were victimized by crimes, and sexual crimes, economic crimes, physical crimes. And I did that for 5 years in Nassau County. And then I went to work in a private firm, basically myself and 2 other partners, hung out a shingle, which a lot of former DAs, 3 former DAs get together and they form a little criminal defense partnership, and you start taking on, in the beginning, you have some clientele, but you have to take assigned cases. That's a bulk of your work in the very beginnings. And by assigned cases, I mean people who are indigent, they can't afford their own lawyer.
Gotcha.
And so there's a legal aid, office.
So how do they get you? They get your number through there?
So the courts will assign you. So you'll have certain days where maybe you go to an arraignment, you stay in arraignment court, and you could pick up 8 or 9 cases of people who get arrested the night before. You're their lawyer, right? So I wound up working in Manhattan for probably 5 years doing assigned counsel work. These were people who had no money. Some of them were homeless. Some of them had long criminal records. So it was a tough. It's a tough way to make a buck. But I did enjoy it, and I felt like I helped people then as well. And because I was a bigger guy, there's not that many guys our size, walking around in a suit in a courthouse as a lawyer. So because of that, a lot of the judges would assign me specifically for people who had a problem with their previous lawyer.
Gotcha. So they wouldn't push you around.
Yeah. So that I wouldn't be intimidated. So, if you had an issue, or if it was like a retread kind of, defendant, I would walk into a courtroom and the judge would go, "Ah, Mr. Collins, step up. So wonderful to see you. I have an assignment for you. His name is, Mr. Smith. And he attacked his last two lawyers, and he's very, very angry. He's very angry, and he's in the back, and he's waiting to talk to you. I'm sure you're going to get along well with him. His case is on for trial next week, so please be ready.
It's a quadruple homicide.
Right, basically, yes.
We left him in the kitchen. He has knives. That he
Well,
won't use anything.
yeah. So yes, he stabbed his last lawyer at the counsel table, but so don't get too close to him. But I'm sure
we left him a cheese knife.
Yes,
But shake his hand. Be polite.
very, very angry man. Very angry. So I had a bunch of those. I remember getting one where I was assigned on a case where judge sends me into the back to meet with my new client who had attacked and frightened all of his previous lawyers.
Nice.
And so he's in. I don't know if you've ever. Hopefully you've never been in, but if you have,
no. Thankfully, knock
so
on wood.
behind courtrooms, there's usually a holding. Behind a criminal courtroom, there's a holding pen. So if somebody's incarcerated, they're put in that pen until they're brought out into the courtroom. So that little pen is basically like a cage. It's bars, and so the guy is on the other side of the bars, and you as a lawyer are standing. So on the other side was Mr. Williams, and he's sitting on a little bench in there. And I say, Mr. Williams, please step up. I want to talk to you. My name is Rick Collins, and I'm an attorney, and I've been assigned to represent you, and we're going to work together on your case. And he comes up, and he's standing, as close as you and I
He's through
are.
he's through the bars.
Through the bars, but the bars are certainly
There's a gap.
maybe 6 inches apart,
Okay.
something like that, 5 inches apart. So I mean, certainly you could get your hand through the bars, So I said, listen, I don't know what happened between you and your last lawyer. That has nothing to do with me. We're going to start fresh, okay? We're going to work together. We're going to figure out how to defend this case you're charged with. I start telling him what he's charged with and all this stuff. And he's looking at me, and I look on his paperwork, and he was actually, this is how long ago it was, he was actually a middleweight pro fighter who was an undercard on Mike Tyson fights back in the day.
Nice.
And he kind of, one thing led to another, drug use, whatever, cascaded down, spiral, got involved. He's charged now with a drug sale on a street in Harlem that went bad, and then he had a gun allegedly that he put under the car that became a robbery. So it's a cornucopia of bad shit.
Bad shit. That maybe you should have stated that night.
It's all bad. It's all bad. So, and the most serious charges would be the robbery and the drug sale. The gun is actually a lesser felony, but so that was the way it was all set up. So I'm talking to him, and he's looking very angry. And the more I talk, the angrier he's starting to look angrier and angrier. And so I ignore it, and I'm talking to him, and I start going through. Listen, your case is on for trial next week, okay? And you have certain rights at that trial. At that trial, you can choose to testify, but you don't have to testify. There's no obligation. You can remain silent, and they have to prove the case. And they have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And as I'm going through all of these things, now he's starting to shake his head and move back and forth as he's looking at me.
I don't like that.
And so again, and I'm ignoring it. And so now I'm talking about, we're going to pick a jury together. We can choose who the jurors are, and we get to challenge some of those jurors, either for cause or for other reasons if we want to. And we have to pick 12 jurors, and those 12 jurors will decide, and we're going to decide together who they're going to be. Now he's shaking his head back and forth, and he's biting his lip.
Oh.
So the lip is being bitten, and now he's closer to the bars. So now we're literally within arm's reach on either side of the bars. And I'm wearing a tie. I got a suit and tie on, so
Pretty easy for him to wrap it around and
he could grab that tie with one hand, and he'd probably get 20 punches in before I'd even know what happened. He's got skills. I think that if I was on the other side and it went to the ground, I outweighed him by a lot. And I think if I got him down on the ground,
That forearm strike would have been crazy.
I'd destroy him.
Yeah.
But in this standing here, I'm just dead meat.
Yeah.
So, but I'm ignoring it, and I'm going through it, and I'm talking about that you're presumed innocent, and unless and until they change that, even now, even at this moment, even on the moment that we pick the jury, you're still presumed innocent. That's what the law, that's what you're allowed under the law. That's an important thing that we have within our system of
Innocent
justice.
until proven guilty.
And so at this point, he's now going really, it's almost like a mongoose. That's,
My man is
you know,
shadow boxing.
Yeah, he's almost shadow boxing with me. He's shaking his head, he's biting his lip, he's got crazy eyes looking at me. So I figured that this is not working, and I've got to represent this guy because there's no way the judge is going to let me off this case.
With no bars
Right.
between you.
Right, with no bars. So I just stopped talking, and I just stand there and I'm looking at him. So I start biting my lip. I start shaking my head. I start going back and forth. So now the two of us together are going back and forth. And he's looking at me like he wants to kill me. And I'm looking at him like I want to kill him. And I'm going back and forth. And he knows that I know that I'm close enough to him that he can grab me. And I'm moving closer to the bars. So he moves a little closer to the bars, and I move closer to the bars. And now we're so close, I can feel his breath on me as we're going back and forth. And this goes on for literally 90 seconds,
Yo,
where nobody says anything.
we need to find the security footage of this occurring and post it everywhere. And this is why you don't fuck with Rick Collins.
For 90 seconds, we just do this whole, mongoose and cobra routine. And then finally, I stop. And I'm looking at him. And I go, now do you want to talk about this case? And he goes, yeah, let's do that. From that moment on, we got along great. It was wonderful. He came in the courtroom, sat next to him. We picked the jury together. I cross-examined witnesses. I wound up getting him acquitted of the robbery, acquitted of the drug sale. He got a lesser offense, at the end. And at the end, when he was sentenced, he gets the sentence. He actually goes to hug me in the court. I go, get out of here, you crazy man. He laughs, He
Get out of here, crazy.
Talk about like in the same way that the interviewer at the DA's office wanted to test and see, would you crack under pressure? His idea, and I think from his perspective, look, he didn't like the lawyers that he had. And I think in his perception, a lawyer who gets assigned on his case, is assigned by the court, is getting paid by the court, is probably working for the court, is not working for him.
They don't give a shit.
Those lawyers, in his mind, and there are very good legal aid lawyers and very good assigned lawyers, but from his perspective, I think it was, these people don't care about me, and, they're going to give in. If the prosecutor just pushes them around a little bit, they're going to fold their cards.
Yeah, belly up.
They don't care. They
Right.
just want to go home.
Right. And I guess when he saw that I was willing to stand up to him and I wasn't cracking and I wasn't backing down, that's what he wanted in a lawyer.
Yeah.
And we got along great, So those were sorts of like the fun experiences that came out of, doing that kind of work. You don't make a lot of money out of it.
That's what I was about to
but
say. So
you
this,
don't.
So
You
now,
don't.
so now let me ask you a side question or something like that. So now you have your own practice
Mhm.
and you're doing that type of work. You transition into a specific law, which is what you primarily practice now.
Right.
But prior to that, does your win-loss record really weigh any merit if you're doing that type of stuff for the court systems?
Because
I feel like that's difficult because
It
I
is. Yeah,
feel
you're
a lot
gonna-
of those are going to be
yeah.
lost.
Well, what I like to say, most people who are accused of crimes are guilty. The vast majority are guilty. And I say that as both having been a prosecutor and a criminal defense lawyer. And if you really think about it, it has to be that way. Because if the alternative was that the majority of people accused of crimes are innocent people, we need to overthrow the government, right?
there's some wrong
it's
shit
like
going
that,
on, like real
that
wrong
would be
shit.
insane. That's not a free society. So yes, the vast majority are guilty. Now, are there some innocent people? Yeah, I would say that in all of the years of my representing people, there's a handful of people that I would say were factually either absolutely the wrong person who didn't do the crime, or in one case, on a steroid case, the crime never occurred. It was manufactured by a lying rat, snitch, confidential informant who made it look like I had a client who sold drugs, steroids, who never actually sold them. He faked it
Oof.
and convinced. I mean, just a devious thing. And I've told that story. I told that whole story on Dave Palumbo's podcast a number of years ago. But by and large, most people are guilty. Now, does that mean that they should be punished to the maximum? No. Does that mean that there aren't, some reasons for why? You know what? The vast majority of people, and in my practice, it's even more so doing, basically nonviolent drug crimes, which is what I do now, mostly performance drug type crimes. But even throughout the criminal justice system, most people in the system are not really bad people. They're people who either started out with 3 strikes against them from the very beginning. Parenting matters,
Matters, yeah. Big time.
education matters. There's lots of stuff that there's disadvantages that people have that it's not so easy to just pull yourself up by the bootstraps for a lot of people. A lot of people are drug addicted, alcohol addicted, mentally ill, diagnosed or undiagnosed. If you kind of weed all of that out of the system, it doesn't mean that those people shouldn't be, those crimes shouldn't be prosecuted or those people don't deserve some punishment. But it's important that the humanity of those people gets brought out to courts because it's not fair to really sentence somebody only for what they did on the worst day of their life sometimes. The guy could have been, Albert Schweitzer and saved children in burning buildings and sacrificed a kidney for somebody else. And then on one day he drove drunk and made a really stupid mistake. And, yes, you have to be punished for that, and there has to be a price to pay
Accountability.
for it. But you also have to recognize that, there's more to what somebody is than what they did on their worst day.
Gotcha.
And so that's what criminal defense lawyers do. We live in a world of shades of gray more than of blacks and whites, which is where we lived as prosecutors. So I think a lot of the best criminal defense lawyers are former prosecutors because it's like playing for the other team. You played for the Red Sox and now you're playing for the Yankees, and
You see both perspectives.
You know the plays, you know what moves they're going to make, you know what's going to work. So that's a huge advantage. And so I did a lot of, I've handled a lot of drunk driving cases, and I've handled a lot of, I've handled homicide cases. I've handled many serious crimes. But in the late 90s, sometimes in life, fate sort of finds what you're supposed to be doing and where you're supposed to be, right? So I had these 2 separate tracks of life. On the one hand, I'm a trial lawyer, prosecutor now, criminal defense lawyer, and it's I'm in court. I'm on trial. I like being in court. I have the skills to do well in court, to defend people, and the mindset to want to help people. On the other hand, I'm a bodybuilder. I've been in the gyms for years and years. I've walked the walk of being a bodybuilder. And that's in my DNA at this point, like as it is with you guys. But they were 2 separate tracks. They were 2 parallel, unrelated tracks. And I never consciously thought that there would be any way of intersecting those tracks. It was not, it's not like I was this brilliant, strategist who said, this is what I'm going to do. It's just that in 1990, the law changed federally, and a bunch of states also changed their laws around before and after that time to make anabolic steroids into a controlled substance.
And that's huge, well, especially back then.
Yeah, because in the 80s, it was like steroids were kind of, just another prescription drug, not really of concern to to the DEA. Not really, a police matter. It was like a super vitamin, I guess.
You just go to the pharmacy and pick it up, right?
Yeah. Pharmacists would more or less, after hours, the pharmacist would take care of people or whatever back in those days. And in 1990, it changed. And then through the 90s, there started to be people who got arrested for anabolic steroid charges, including possession of anabolic steroids. Because when you make something a controlled substance, the mere possession without a prescription becomes a crime, And so you had these two worlds. You had the world of the courts and the cops and the lawyers that suddenly was faced with this new substance, this, apple in an orange crate of the Controlled Substances Act that they didn't really understand. I mean, they had heard things about roid rage, and there was a NFL player named Lyle Alzado who
Mhm.
claimed that he died or was dying and then ultimately died from steroid abuse and growth hormone abuse and got a T-cell lymphoma from it, brain cancer. So there was a lot of bad stuff, a lot of bad, attention to it. And on the other hand, you had the guys in the trenches, the guys in the gyms who were suddenly drug criminals and didn't understand what the laws were or how they changed or what the
Yeah, like
ramifications.
put a tag on everybody's head that was just standing there
Yeah.
all fine the week before.
Suddenly it's you're in a completely different ballpark. So I wound up starting to get calls from having been in the gym culture for so many years. I started getting calls from people, trying to understand this collision of these two worlds. How could something that people use, to look better, mostly,
Yeah.
Mhm.
when you really come down to it, it's a cosmetic drug more than a performance drug statistically.
Mhm.
Yes, they're, the Barry Bonds people and, the Lance Armstrong scandals and stuff. Okay. But by and large, the vast majority of people using steroids aren't even competing in bodybuilding.
They just want to look good on the beach.
They want to look good on the beach. Take a shirt off,
Yeah,
go to Cancun.
I've had guys I know that they're like, they ask me, they're like, "Oh, what if I do that?" I go, "I don't know. I've never fucking taken anything." They're like, "Oh, well, I think I'm gonna do this before I go and do this.
Right.
Go to the beach for
Right.
spring break." Like,
Right.
Yeah.
really?
Right.
You're gonna
Right.
run a cycle for
Yes.
spring break?
Right.
Have
And
fun.
but you look. We live
Because
in a very
listen, I think of people that run a cycle. I think of you're getting ready for a show. You're doing it for a
Yeah.
reason, not
right.
just
no.
not just for a 3-day hiatus of drinking
Right.
everything under
well,
the sun.
that may be an extreme, but there are a lot of people who do it, on and off as cycles just to look better, and maybe it's vain, maybe it's insecurity. A lot of what we do in gyms probably could be looked at in that way,
Mhm.
but so is a lot of the stuff that people get Botox, people get liposuction, people get. Women get breast implants. Women do fat injections and
Ugh, yeah.
silicone injections and all sorts of from the lips all the
I
way
can't
down.
deal with
and-
the lips. The
So
lip shit looks so stupid.
but we do these things because I think we're in a society that maybe prizes physical appearance overly much, probably, and so
I'd agree to that.
and so we're insecure in some ways, and we overcompensate by doing some of these things. And steroids, I think, for a lot of people, not all, but for a lot of people, it's that sort of overcompensation for an insecurity.
Mhm.
And maybe it's not the best thing to be doing under those circumstances. But should you go to jail for that? Should that be a crime? And so people couldn't even grasp, the people in the gyms couldn't grasp how could this even have happened? This makes no
And it's long
sense.
before like real internet where you could do
Correct.
a lot of
Yeah.
research.
That's
so
right.
it must have been even scarier.
So I wound up becoming sort of like the guy to sort of bridge these two worlds because I understood both worlds, and there weren't really anybody else who did at that time. And so ultimately, I set up a website to just inform people on both sides what was going on. And so steroidlaw.com was something I set up back in the 90s, and it's still a resource for people to learn about sort of steroids in court and steroids, in the gyms. And so I wound up starting to get more and more cases in that area. I was still doing drunk driving cases and everything else at the same time, but ultimately it became more and more of those sorts of cases. And then, like you said, things changed and the internet came around, and now suddenly what used to be steroids from a local gym dealer or a friendly pharmacist or or a doctor who was, writing a script here or there. Now suddenly people could connect with a source in Thailand or Romania
Ugh.
or anywhere and order steroids to their house,
That would freak me out.
over the internet.
If I took that would
That's when
would
it gets shady.
freak me out.
And so that became a big thing. And that was true throughout, the 90s. And then, on 9/11, that changed it again because suddenly now in the aftermath of 9/11, there was a much higher scrutiny by law enforcement, federal law enforcement, of anything that was coming through the mail, especially from outside the US. So now you had seizures of more and more of these packages of, you know, 1,000 Thai anabol in a little tub, or, you know, some vials. So all of that, and people started getting arrested. And so I was getting phone calls. If you were involved with a steroid charge, you wound up calling me because your local lawyer had no clue. He didn't know an Anavar from an aspirin. He couldn't. It
Yeah.
made no sense. And he was looking at you like, "What are you taking these steroids for? You're gonna die in a week." And you
Back
know,
when- back when I
it
used
turns
to
to
read-
the point where if it's a lawyer that isn't you, you're guilty before innocent now.
right. So
Back when I used to read Charles Atlas's book, we didn't need that.
Right, exactly. So at some point, I was able to kind of segue my entire practice into the area of performance drugs. And so that's really all I do now. And I love it because I'm probably the only criminal defense lawyer in the world that I know of who doesn't represent typically anybody who has stolen money, or who has physically harmed somebody, or who has economically harmed anybody, or sexually harmed anybody. All of my clients are typically people with most of them very limited criminal records, who are guys who train a lot and who got into steroids at some point, right or wrong, decided that they liked it, and then ultimately got into selling it, or in some cases making it for others. And the law now brands them the same sort of drug criminal as the guy who's selling cocaine or
As a
heroin.
cartel member.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so those are my clients now, and I do love what I do. And that led to more and more work in the dietary supplement industry, because there was a time, you guys may remember, when there were a lot of products on the supplement industry market that were kind of, loopholed anabolic steroids. They were called prohormones or steroidal precursors. The first one, I think, was androstenedione, back in the day in the late 90s. And then there was one testosterone, and so many other little chemical configurations that were not on the list of controlled substances at the time. And so they were sold in health food stores, mom and pop health food stores. And so ultimately, a bunch of crackdowns occurred on some of those cases. There was a case called the Balco case back in the day, and I was the lawyer for the chemist in that case. There was also a search warrant that was executed on bodybuilding.com back in the day,
Really?
way back, because they were selling these steroidal type substances on the site. They didn't, the most of the focus was on, they weren't making them. They were just selling other brands that were making these products. So I wound up representing a lot of those companies and getting very much involved in the supplement industry. And that led to a practice now where I represent a lot of companies, good companies in the supplement industry. So if you're coming out with a supplement line of, creatine, some sort of whey protein, casein, whatever, a fat burner, a pre-workout, a recovery product. There's regulations. We hear sometimes the supplement industry is unregulated. Well, that's not true. There's a ton of regulations.
Yeah, working with brands, I can say
Yeah.
I've
You know
seen
the
the amount of
deal.
regulations that they need to go through.
Even the label has to have be formatted properly. The font size has to be correct. There's all sorts of regulations on all of that. What you can say, claims, you can't make claims that are disease claims or drug claims. You can't make unsubstantiated claims. The FTC looks at marketing materials and can handle that stuff. So and there's obviously lots of regulations that the FDA, the FTC, and other agencies do. There's also plaintiffs' class action lawyers that police the market. So if there's something that's on the market that shouldn't be on there, or some claim that's made that's unsubstantiated, they sue. They find a bunch of class action plaintiffs and they'll sue that company. So I wound up getting involved with a lot of that stuff. I've brought in a lawyer who does a lot of trademark work. So, and trademark is another thing. If you're a brand, you want to make sure, number one, that if you're going to call your product, super muscle, you want to make sure that that is a clean trademark, and that if you come out with a product that says super muscle, and suddenly the person who has a trademark on super muscle sends you a cease and desist letter and says, let's pony up some money, I want to see what your sales are. You don't want that to happen. And you also want to protect your mark, right? So if you're going to come out with a line or a particular SKU, a particular product, you want to make sure that you protect your intellectual property so that somebody can't rip off your logo, your name.
Which, how often in this industry does that happen?
So and then
it's
you have
wild.
So you have to hit them with a cease and desist letter, and you sue them. So I'm very involved in the regulatory aspects of the dietary supplement industry, in addition to sort of the criminal defense components to the steroid and growth hormone and research chemical. And you may be familiar with there's a whole market of research chemical sites that are selling substances. Sometimes they are pharmaceutical drugs, sometimes they're unapproved drugs for research purposes only.
That's what I wanted to ask about was the SARMs.
Right.
All say not for human consumption.
Right.
With a fucking like a wink.
Right.
Do they really say that?
There's no wink, but they might as well be. Yes,
Right.
there's no human consumption.
Right. Yeah. So and I've handled a number of cases involving SARMs. I'm very familiar with SARMs and as well as other peptides, research chemical peptides. The government, I think the people who set up some of these research chemical sites think that if they make you as a buyer say that you're a researcher and agree, and maybe even click a box, a disclaimer box saying, I'm a researcher and I'm not going to use this. I'm going to just use this for research. What research? I don't know. You have a guinea pig, whatever it is. I don't know what you're researching or how you're researching, but you make that claim that the company then thinks that, well, that's on him. That's on the buyer. I'm not misrepresenting. He said he's a researcher and I believe him. There's a concept in the law called willful blindness. And so you can't, purposely ignore a factual scenario that's clear. And so what the government has done in prosecuting some of these cases, these research chemical companies, is they will look at all the facts around it. And they'll look at who was buying, where they were shipping, all the shipments weren't to
every paper trail.
Research chemical, they weren't to research sites, or you weren't sending anything to the University of Arizona or to the Mayo Clinic. You were sending it to individual addresses.
You've never actually owned a guinea pig,
right? Yeah. So and the way that they would market is, your marketing back in the day, they would put ads in like, muscle magazines with pictures of like jacked up guys. And it's like, why would researchers be looking in a muscle magazine, and then they would communicate. And sometimes the feds would set up, undercover agents who would interact with the research chemical site owners and say, hey, I'm a researcher and I bought your product. I've been using it for 3 weeks and it doesn't, it's not doing anything. What's up with that? Am I using enough? I'm only using, and so,
try to get advice.
And so people would, or I want to return this. It didn't work. They would find ways to.
Were the researchers that dumb to converse back and give?
Well, were the owners of the research site? I mean, sometimes, you want to have some sort of customer service, right?
Yeah.
So
how big's the guinea pig?
Yeah.
Like 300 pounds? Okay.
Ultimately, they'd find ways of sometimes. So those became problematic cases. And I've represented a lot of athletes who've been accused of doping. Like we said before, I was involved years ago in a survey of steroid use among American male adults, and it was 2,000 respondents and we asked them everything. I was with 3 other researchers, in academia, and I was the only lawyer who was on the team. But we got incredible feedback on who's using, why are they using, how much are they using, all of that. It's a number of years ago, so I think 2006, if I remember. But 80% of the people who responded using steroids had never competed in anything related to physical fitness or, sports. And so they were all cosmetic. And there have been a number of other studies that have found the same thing, that about 80% of steroid users are people who are using to look better, for vanity, however you want to say it. You know, you can spin it any way you want, negative or positive. But these are people who are typically health conscious people, who are, they're not eating every night at McDonald's. They're not drinking a bottle of scotch every night. They're not, they're actually exercising,
Yeah.
and they're dieting. And maybe this is not a good thing to be doing. And obviously, clearly, steroids are drugs, regardless of whether they're controlled substances. They should be prescription drugs. They should be in the hands of doctors.
Yeah.
Doctors should be involved with this, not getting it over
It
the
shouldn't
internet.
be. It shouldn't be condemned where everyone has to do it under the table.
Right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be. And certainly it's not good if that's what's happening. But the question becomes, these are people who are typically not criminal types, but the behavior is now considered criminal. So, so I've represented athletes charged with doping. Some of them, have used steroids. Some have used other drugs. Some of them didn't do anything wrong. I represented a boxer. You know Chris Algieri, right? You know Chris?
He
Chris
goes to the gym.
He's
That's
yeah.
I
Might as
automatically.
well.
That's
Might as
my
well.
first
He's
question.
already he's always
Yeah.
he's a good friend of Mike Camps and Tony Ricci, if you know those guys.
Yeah.
But he's a great guy. Just I was curious if you knew him, but
I might.
he's probably
probably one of those by face again.
yeah. So, but I represented a boxer by the name of Sam Solomon a number of years ago. Sam was a middleweight boxer. He was a number one ranked middleweight boxer at the time. He was from Australia, and he went into a supplement store in Australia. And as a drug tested athlete, he didn't want to take anything that would cause a positive test.
Of course.
So he went into a supplement store, mom and pop supplement store in Australia, and said, with his, Australian accent, I might, I'll take something that's going to give me some energy, but I can't use anything that will cause me to test positive for a drug test. And they're like, okay, take this. So they gave him like some sort of stimulant product.
Okay.
And he looked at the label.
Like
It was,
a pre-workout or caffeine.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. There was nothing on the label that looked problematic to him. But to be sure, he actually demanded that the health food store call the company that made the product, get them on the phone, and have them assure him. I actually got the phone record showing that in the store, Sam made them call the manufacturer of the product. So from a due diligence perspective, there was nothing more really that he could have done. He checked all the boxes of what an athlete should do to prevent him from taking something bad.
Yeah.
So he wound up fighting the German champion, Felix Sturm. And Felix Sturm was sort of the Aryan poster child of the German Boxing Federation, and he beat him. Sam beat Felix Sturm, and then he tested positive for methylphenephrine. Methylphenephrine was not on that label. So how did Sam test positive for methylphenephrine? So we ultimately wound up fighting. I was called in on the case, and Sam was a great guy, and we wound up fighting the Germans. It was like World War III. The Germans don't like to lose, let me tell you. And so there were some problems in the way that they tested, and it was a big fight. And I made a big hoopla, and I did a press release. I wound up actually taking a sample of Sam's urine, a portion of what they had tested, and testing it at my own lab, and getting a contrary result at my lab, and doing a press release. And it, ultimately the main thing was to try to save Sam's ranking, because if he was at a stage of his career that if he wound up dropping way down on the ranking, he was never going to work his way back up.
Yeah.
So I had to keep him at that ranking. So I wound up ultimately winning that argument.
That's awesome.
Kept him. He wound up fighting Felix Sturm a second time, beat him again, didn't tested negative for everything, so it was fine. And then went on to $1 million purse in his next fight. So Sam ultimately did well. But it's a cautionary tale that, I know a lot of people will say, well, every athlete is going to say, oh, it must have been a supplement. I didn't take anything. I don't know anything about it, but it can happen. And there are situations where there are contaminated supplements. And, you want to make sure especially if you're a drug tested athlete, that you really make sure that you know what you're putting in your body, because you're going to be held accountable for anything that shows up in your urine.
I have friends that play. If you have to say something,
No.
I have friends that play college sports, and I get a lot of pre-workouts from different companies
Right.
and this and that. And they're like, "Oh, is this going to test? It's going to test?" And I go, "I don't know. Don't take it.
Right.
Don't take it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I don't get tested. I work for myself. Like it doesn't really matter what pops up for me.
Right.
I just take pre-workout. I'll
Right.
take protein. So
Right.
whatever it is, kind of thing.
Well, there are some companies that actually, like third-party certification companies, that will give an approval.
Yeah, lab
a
tested, kind of like how they do with
certification.
kind of like how they do with CBD. Tested outside labs. This
Right.
way you can see
Yeah.
the results,
Right.
unbiased.
Right. Yeah. Well, CBD. It's funny you say CBD, because CBD is something I get probably right now. I get more calls about CBD than anything else.
Really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
because everybody's trying to figure out, what's legal. What is the current status of CBD? And the reality is, a law went into effect which took CBD and hemp out of the Controlled Substances Act if it meets certain qualifications. The problem is FDA's position is that CBD is not legal as a dietary supplement. Can't sell it. FDA says no, hard no. It's not even a soft no.
Really?
It's a hard
Ooh.
no.
And I have a lot of stores that I go to that
Right.
not only sell it but are specific CBD shops.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can walk into almost any mom and pop health food store, gas stations,
Any store in general
pharmacy.
nowadays.
Correct. And you'll see a wall of CBD supplements. Now, topicals is different. I'm talking about supplements.
Mhm.
So the store that I go to in Northport, they actually sell the flour.
Okay.
So they'll sell pre-rolled joints of CBD flour.
Okay, right. Okay.
No THC in it,
Uh-huh.
but it's just pure. It's literally pure THC. You just
Right.
get a full body high from smoking it.
Well, the FDA has continued, and as of this moment continues to say, you cannot label dietary supplement on a CBD product. Now, the problem is the walls are covered with these products all over the country, and every state has its own laws, so it does get even more
Yeah, it
complicated.
gets weird from state to federal.
Yeah, and even New York City, has its own, regulation with respect to CBD. But bottom line is, FDA is not really enforcing its position on CBD to the degree that it could, and so it's sort of allowing these products to flourish. It has sent warning letters to some companies, usually if they make disease claims. So if you're saying your CBD product is going to cure your diabetes, or reduce your risk of a heart attack, or anything that's like a drug claim, boom, they'll send a warning letter. And then, of course, the plaintiff's class action lawyers quickly send out their letters demanding money, saying you've misled people by making that claim. But, for companies that don't make any claims, a lot of these companies are making a lot of money. There was a study that just came out that said that 50% of the tested CBD products did not meet the label claims, which is problematic, and kind of happens when, if the FDA's position is that it's illegal and so they won't regulate it because you can't regulate an illegal product,
They could say that it's
then
99%
all
CBD, and it could
sorts of
be
all sorts of stuff is there, and there have been instances where at least one athlete, Devin Logan, who's an Olympic skier, took a CBD product and tested positive for THC.
That's because a full spectrum CBD products
So-
contain trace amounts of THC.
Yeah. So, and what is trace? Who knows? What is enough to test positive? What if you took CBD
when
all
it
day
pops,
long?
when it pops, it pops, and
Right.
it is what it is. They don't care how much is in your system;
Right.
they just know it's there.
So I get a lot of calls on CBD. Obviously, anybody who's in the steroid trade, I kind of get calls on that. I teach. I've taught trial practice for many years. I love doing that. People call me with just generalized, questions like, got a call from a guy the other day. If I get stopped by a cop who says, he thinks that I've been drinking and he wants me to take the breathalyzer, the intoxilizer test. Should I take it? What do you advise? A lot of people are curious. You go out, you have a drink, maybe you have a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine or 2 beers, and now suddenly there's maybe you're doing 65 and a 55, or maybe
You get pinched.
and you get pinched, and now the cop comes to the side of the car and he's smelling your breath, and maybe he gets a whiff of the beer or whatever, and he says, do you want to take the test? What do you think? Take it or not take it?
I say take it. I know you're going to say don't take it and probably get a blood test out of the station.
I would have said take it, I guess, depending on how much you drank.
Well, both of you are right. You should take it, except for certain circumstances. So if you've been in an accident and maybe you've hit another car and maybe somebody's hurt, you probably don't want to take it, and I'll tell you why. If you've had 20 drinks and you're going to blow a reading that is going to be off the charts, if you can remember this, I know it's tough, but if you can remember it, don't take it under those circumstances. If you've been popped for drunk driving before, and this isn't your first rodeo, don't take it. And the reasons for that is that typically, if you've only had those 2 drinks, you're probably going to get an offer of a reduced charge, a driving while impaired instead of the driving while intoxicated, which lessens all the punishments, and you can go on driving and doing okay. If you refuse the test, you've limited the evidence against you because they won't have that breath reading. But you have an automatic revocation of your license, and that's a big problem. So there's a penalty attached to that. If you've got a prior, they probably won't offer you the driving while impaired. So at that point, you're better off limiting the evidence against you. If you've had, a gallon of scotch, you're going to blow a reading where they're going to say, I'm not making an offer to you. So you're better off not having that evidence against you. If you've been in an accident, somebody's been hurt, there's going to be a lawsuit, and you want to limit the evidence against you. But for a first time, you had a drink or 2, probably better. Most criminal defense lawyers will tell you to take the test under those circumstances with the caveats that I've given you.
I got pulled over leaving Huntington one time, and I was out for a coworker's. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast. I say this all the time because I tell you so much shit. I don't know if I actually say it on the microphone. I was out for a coworker's going away party. He was leaving Apple, and this is recently. This is probably within the last year. And he was finally leaving Apple, and he was going to work for Facebook. So they had me come out to Rust and Gold in Huntington, and went out. Everyone kept trying to get me to drink. I said, I'm not staying that long. I literally had 0 alcohol.
Wow. Okay.
Nothing. Didn't even have a water, so I didn't even drink anything at the bar from a glass. So I say goodbye to everybody, get in my car, and I leave. Now, my car, the white Audi, Rizzles license plate.
Right.
It attracts attention. It's loud.
A little bit.
So I'm leaving, and I'm driving down one of the side streets in Huntington. I must have left 3 seconds ago. Lights go off behind me. Okay. Usually, there's no front plate. Your exhaust is too loud. The windows are too dark. Whatever. So I pull over down a side street. Comes up to the car. Like, hey, how you doing, man? What's going on? I said, how you doing, officer? He goes, do you mind if I get your license registration? I said, of course. It's right here. Do you mind if I reach for it?
Good.
He goes, sure. Now, I have a lot of detectives in my family, cop friends, everything. Every time I get pulled over, especially at night, all the interior lights on in the car, all my windows down, left hand out, right hand on the wheel.
Yep. Perfect.
And I actually take the keys out and I put them on the roof. Okay. I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
So don't have to worry about me taking off.
Right.
So.
And just, particularly now, and we
with the environment there.
Yeah, you're at a time where the most dangerous thing that a cop can do is a car stop. That is a bad moment for a cop. Yeah. And so when those windows are all rolled up and your
that's what
hands
drives
are
me fucking
moving
crazy.
around,
that's what drives me crazy when I see these videos online of people with the window crack. I'm not rolling my window down. Right. They have the camera in the cop's face. It's like. You're just antagonizing a situation.
Right.
Have you never been disciplined?
Right.
I've had my fair share of asshole cops I've dealt with. Yeah. And guess what? I kept my mouth shut.
No.
And I complied.
Yep.
I could get arrested. I've never been arrested. Knock on
Right,
wood, never been
right.
arrested.
Mhm.
I could get arrested.
I've
and
come
I'll,
closer than you have.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
And I'll sit there just like you. I'll go down. It's fine. Just, I'm
Right.
not resisting. I
Right.
have no intentions.
Right.
You do what you got to do. And then I call my Rick. That's
Right.
it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Absolutely.
That-
I'll be there in a heartbeat. It's funny you say that because I just saw a video the other day on Facebook or somewhere going around that was a cop comes over to the side of the car, and the guy is like, he says license and registration. The motorist says, why'd you stop me? Cop says license and registration. Why did you stop me? I want to know. You have to tell me why you stopped me.
it's skin
And the cop is
crawling.
like, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm asking for your license and registration. No, I refuse to give that to you until you tell me why you stopped me.
Get the fuck out of the car.
He goes, the law requires it. The law requires you to tell me why you stopped me. And the cop is like, sir, I'm asking you. It escalates from there. Ultimately, the guy is pulled out of the car by his hair. Whether the cop could have handled it better or could have de-escalated, I don't know. But this guy genuinely believed that he had the right to depose the cop
Reverse
at the side of the road.
reverse
Yes,
interrogate.
Yeah. So I'm here. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay. Why did you stop me? And how far behind you? What was your view of me? I mean, that's for a courtroom. Yes. I can ask all those questions of the cop at some point, but you can't ask them on the side of the road
I know,
before you give him your license and registration.
Well, they saw one hell of
Put
a
your-
Facebook post.
Right? Well, it was a video.
No. I'm saying
oh, yeah.
if somebody said this is allowed, I'm going to do it.
Right. Yeah, I guess,
Yeah.
It drives me
Stupid.
nuts. It drives me nuts when I look at it. It's people that
wacky.
have never been disciplined and told that somebody is over you in authority for the time being.
Yeah.
They're not better than you,
Right.
but they have more authority than you.
No question.
Sit there,
Yeah.
shut the fuck up, and do what he says.
Right.
And if things start getting out of control, you go with the flow.
Absolutely.
And you deal with it with an attorney or one that's granted to you.
You
It
go
is
to
it is
court,
not
and
worth it to
that's-
fight
no,
with somebody
no,
and
resisting is never
Yeah.
a
What?
good idea.
The
Now, but I will say this, and that is, while you should cooperate in every way, you also do have certain rights that you shouldn't just squander and pass on. And being respectful with a authority of law enforcement doesn't mean that you have to roll over and sacrifice those rights. So there's 3 amendments, the 4th, 5th, and 6th amendments that protect us from overreaching by the government.
Okay.
And so basically it's don't consent to a search. You have
A
no
vehicle search,
obligation. But any search. We'll talk about that more. Don't say anything. Keep your mouth shut. You have the right to keep your mouth shut and ask for a lawyer. Those 3 things. No consent to searches. Keep your mouth shut. Ask for a lawyer. 1, 2, 3. That's the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment. You just had a little legal course here. So
Send the checks.
Yeah, there you go.
Legal system.
Send the checks to
but so the consent to search, you see so many people because yes, you want to be respectful. Yes, you don't want to resist arrest. Yes, you want to accede to authority. But if you're asked the question, do you mind if I look in your trunk? Do you mind if I come into your house? Do you mind? You have no obligation to do that. And the law actually says that if they don't have a warrant, they don't have a right to come into your house. There may be things in your house that might not be good for them to see or not. But certainly if you believe that they are interested in you because they think you've done something wrong of whatever it is, it's very simple to say, I'm sorry, I don't consent. I don't consent to a search of my car. I don't consent to a search of my house. I don't consent to a search of my person, of my pockets, of whatever, of my suitcase, whatever it is. They have a warrant. Let them go
Of
get
my
that
Kenji.
warrant of your
Can
Kenji
search my
dog who's
Kenji.
sleeping. So that's the 4th Amendment protects you against unreasonable searches. It gives you your privacy. That's the protection of your privacy rights. And so I've seen people walk themselves into cases that never would have been charged. They never would have been arrested.
Because they came in for one thing and they saw something else.
Or they just asked, do you mind if we take a look here? And people, I think the idea is that people are afraid that, well, if I said no, I'd look guilty. But you were guilty. You had something there. So don't worry about, any, and I have lots of friends in law enforcement too. They expect you to say no to consenting to a search. If you're foolish enough to consent to the search And now they find, do you mind if I look in your trunk? And sure enough, there's, the dead body or whatever it is.
Oh, shit.
Damn it. I didn't want to look guilty. Well, okay.
Well, we found it.
The body was there,
The case is over.
So
we could smell it, sir.
right. So having a warrant to search is a requirement in most cases for the police, and certainly consenting is not something that you need to do, that you're required to do. You can stand on your rights. As far as, what you say, one of the strongest pieces of evidence in a criminal case is the words that come out of your mouth.
And everything is especially recorded with body cams. So just shut up.
Yes, well, absolutely. But even back in the day, one of the reasons that guy thought that the cop has to tell him why he stopped him was that law enforcement officers will usually, when they walk up to the car, will say license and registration. Do you know why I stopped you? They'll often ask that question. I guess in his mind, that crazy motorist who got pulled out by his hair, in his mind, that means, I guess, that he thought that the cop is supposed to know that, okay? The reason the police officer asks you, do you know why I stopped you, is to get you to make an incriminating statement about yourself.
Mhm.
That's the whole purpose of it. Because what he'll get you to say is, license and registration, do you know why I stopped you?
I was going too
It
fast.
was, it was all the cocaine in the trunk.
Yeah, well, that body I have back. Did you smell the body?
Oh my God, it stinks. I'm trying to get home.
I swear it's flour pouring out of the
But people will say, oh, did I blow that light? I was going a little too fast. That gets written down. He writes that down immediately. And that is the strongest piece of evidence, because up until that point, it was just his word against yours. Now it's your word supporting him. You were going too fast. You blew the light. So that's why they will ask that. And that is the most damning evidence, is a statement of admission, an incriminating statement, a confession, whether it's in writing or oral. All of it is bad. And so the best thing is to not say anything. And then there's a little magic in.
A little
I'm
magic.
going to give you a little sprinkle of magic. And that magic under our law is asking for a lawyer, is demanding a lawyer, because that is a magical effect. When you say that word, lawyer, when you say, I need to talk to my lawyer, I got to talk to my lawyer, that prevents them from further questioning you.
You can't say anything else.
They can't continue to question you once. Now, they sometimes will, maybe a cop who's not going to abide by the law might try, but you just don't answer any of those questions. I see so many people who, let's say some guy, orders a package of steroids, and now, there's a cop at the door, and the cop starts asking some questions. Either they let him in, which violates the first rule that I gave you, don't consent to them coming in, or they'll answer questions. And the irony is that when a federal agent shows up at your door and is asking you questions, did you order some steroids, sir? Have you ever used steroids? Do you know anything about steroids? No. Me? No, I don't know any. I don't even work out. If the denials, if he's asking you questions in his official capacity as law enforcement, and you say, no, I did not order a package. No, I didn't. That's not mine. Is this your package, sir? No. Those are lies. If those are determined to be false statements to the law enforcement agent, that's a crime in and of itself. Lying to a federal agent is a crime. People go to jail for lying to a federal agent. So Martha Stewart did, if you remember. Martha Stewart didn't do anything wrong in terms of insider trading. She just gave false answers about what she did, and she wound up going to jail for it. So lying. So if you say, no, I didn't do the crime. Did you commit this crime? No, me? No, I didn't. If that's a lie, that's the crime. That's a new crime. And if you say, yes, I did, great. All right, put your hands behind your back, because now you've walked yourself into the case. So either way is bad. The only good answer is, I can't talk to you about it because I have a lawyer. Give me your card, your information. I'll have my lawyer, the greatest lawyer, Rick Collins. Do you know him?
Yeah.
This guy's phenomenal. I'll have him contact you, but I can't talk to you. Well, sir, And they can say anything, and they're trained to try to get you to. You want to be that way, sir? Okay, we can do it the easy way or the hard way. We're just trying to. You're not in any real trouble. We're just trying to figure out if this is your package. Sir, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you. Rick Collins, guy's phenomenal, big as a house. Go, That
Shoulders like the Himalayas.
There you go. But no, kidding aside, you do want to always say, I have a lawyer, I want a lawyer, I need a lawyer, I got to talk to a lawyer. My lawyer will call you. I can't answer any questions. Don't say yes, I did. Don't say no, I didn't. Don't admit. Don't deny. Just say that's it. Nothing to say. I can't. I'd love to talk to you. I can't. I can't talk to you. I have a lawyer. My lawyer will do the talking. Please.
Did you have
And
something
do
you
it in
wanted
a
to say?
respectful way.
Okay, I thought you were going to cut in at
One
one
thing I was
point.
curious about, though, is a little bit not off topic, but so obviously you're a little bit bigger than the average person. Now, do you think that would or ever has affected, let's just say, a steroid case, where even the jury would look at you and go, "Well, you're bigger than I am." You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I represented a pro bodybuilder a number of years ago, and so it was. There were two pro bodybuilders who were accused on the case, and it was in Iowa, and I was standing between them, and I looked at these guys. And I think everything is relative, right? I looked like a child. I looked like I had never lifted a weight in my life, and it was that point that I realized, okay, I'm not that big. I'm really not that big. I'm 230, and so yeah, these guys were like 280, to 290. So everything is relative,
Cement floors cracked when they were walking.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, no, I don't think that's the case. Hopefully I look like I'm in shape, and hopefully I look like, I work out, and I hope.
It's pretty obvious when we put it against normal people.
But in a suit, it may not be as clear. I don't know.
The custom suits?
Yeah,
I do.
the
The wide top shoulders?
Oh, man,
Come on.
I do have a lot of the custom suits.
You can start wearing a fat suit.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Blow it up underneath.
Yeah.
I want to tell you the rest of that story with the cop.
Yeah,
but the other thing, just a side question that just came up. I wrote it down just in case that got that we were talking about that for a little while. What if you address, or what if a package is addressed to an animal in the house?
Wow, addressed to
the
an
So
animal.
I know friends of mine that live in Cali
Mhm.
that have sent paraphernalia, marijuana to other people,
Right.
just like friends of the family of theirs, whatever it might be. They send them a little bit of weed, something like that, but they address it to an animal in the house.
Right.
So is that something where they come in, they go, "Is that your package?" And you go, that's a dog. What are you talking about?
Right. So the way, interesting question. So the way it usually works is something called a controlled delivery. If law enforcement identifies in the mail something that shouldn't be in there, whether it's a drug or it's a steroid or it's marijuana, whatever it is, they can now decide what are they going to do with it. So they'll usually research, well, who's it going to? So if they say, oh, Nicky Rizzo, okay. Does he have any priors? Oh, he was ordering this from Thailand. Does he do a lot of orders from Thailand? They'll make a determination whether this is kind of a one-off or whether maybe you're dealing in this stuff or not. If they decide it's not worth their while, what they'll usually do is they'll send a letter called a seizure letter.
Yeah, I've heard of it
And
before.
so that letter will basically say, hey, Nicky, we got your package.
Come on down.
Yeah.
Come pick it up.
Yeah, come on down. If you think that there's a basis for you having it legit, come on down and we'll talk about that, But if we don't hear from you, then we're going to destroy this package, okay? And so I'll get phone calls from people saying, what do I do? I'm like, you know what? Do you really think you should have that package?
Take the loss.
And so the answer is pretty obvious. So maybe if it's addressed to a dog, well, then Kenji would get a seizure letter saying, "Hey, Kenji, come on down." His head went right up when I said it.
The South Shore Animal Shelter.
Yeah. Hey, Kenji, if you want that package, you're gonna have to.
He thought it was his Kong
show
box,
up.
his
Right.
monthly Kong box.
So So let's say they say, well, Kenji's been ordering a lot of stuff. This is the 40th package that Kenji has
From Thailand.
From Thailand. And maybe this address in Thailand is something that we've identified as a problem. This area. So I think we need to stop Kenji. I think enough is enough with Kenji.
They come to see him, they interrogate him, they put him in a room.
So what they would do then is potentially a controlled delivery. So they will dress up an agent, a law enforcement agent, as the courier, whether it's FedEx or U.S. Postal or whatever it is, and walk up to the house with the package.
Oh, they get him like that, huh?
So that'll be the controlled delivery. Now, meanwhile, they will have a warrant signed by a judge called an anticipatory warrant, which will say that if the package is accepted, it triggers an ability for the agents to come into the house. So they can
right
now
then and there
search
too, right?
Right then and there. Now, while that agent is walking up the steps to Kenji's house, there are probably 10 to 15 other agents lingering around the periphery in a car, pretending to be doing this or that, waiting to see what happens when the doorbell rings. Now, who answers the phone? Who answers the door? Kenji probably can't answer the door himself.
He does go to the door every time somebody comes
He may
there.
come to the door. Yeah. But yeah, they will try to put the package into the hands of somebody inside. If nobody answers the door, they will either come back, or in some cases, they'll leave it in the mailbox or on the steps, especially if they know that the person is home. And they'll usually do some advanced surveillance to see who's home, And then I assume Kenji won't be the one who'll come out to get it. I assume, let's say Nikki comes out and they see Nikki. Now, they already know who Nikki is because they've done a search on that address and they realize Kenji's a dog. But there is a bodybuilder. There's a bodybuilder named Nikki who lives there. And, assuming that somebody in the house is using steroids, we think it might be Nikki, right?
But then they see Kenji.
They see the size of Kenji. So once Nikki takes it into the house, they will either come and execute the warrant if that's what the warrant calls for, or in some cases, let's say Nikki doesn't take the package. Let's say Nikki gets a funky feeling that something's not right about this. Maybe he went online, he tracked the package, and he sees that the package
too many hands.
Yeah, it's passed hands too many times. There's something fishy about this. It took too long. I think somebody's been testing what's in that package. This isn't a good thing. Then at some point, Nikki just maybe looks at the package and leaves it out there. Or maybe he writes return to sender on it or whatever. Tries to distance himself from that package. Sometimes they will then do what's called a knock and talk, where they'll come to the door and they won't be asking for Kenji. They'll be asking for Nikki, and they'll say, "So, we're here to talk about the package. You know what the package. You know what we're looking for, right? Did you order some steroids?"
I can't answer your questions. I have to call.
Kenji, come here.
I have to call Rick Collins, my lawyer.
Yes, because once you start saying no, which is almost you almost wanted to,
I did.
because right?
You already told me not to do it. I already wanted to.
Exactly, right. Yeah, and that happens so many times. It's like I will tell clients all the time, don't talk, don't answer, and then even repeat customers who've been through it once. You'd think that they would know from the first time. And they'll say, yeah, in that moment, because I think there is something intrinsically in us that makes us, many of us want to, comply with authority and answer a question. And they're standing there and you're caught like off guard, and suddenly there's the two guys there and they're wearing suits and they look official and they're asking, and I don't want to see, it's like, I don't want to seem guilty. So I said, no, I don't know anything about it. And, and then suddenly you're walking yourself into a charge of lying to the agent.
Walk yourself right into a corner.
Yeah. So it's not a good place to be. So that's probably how the Kenji scenario would play out.
Damn it, Kenji.
I don't think Kenji would ever be arrested. No, there's no mens rea or intent on
puppy jail.
No puppy jail. So
that cop. It's interesting. The more you talk about almost baiting kind of thing, just to try to get you to say the wrong thing.
Right.
So he asked me for a license and registration. I give it to him, and he goes, where you come from? I said, I honestly don't even know the bar name. It was my first time there tonight. I said something Gold. He goes, oh, Rust and Gold. I said, yeah, the Rust and Gold. And I said, that's it. And he goes, okay. He goes, you're going to Plainview, huh? I went, yeah. He goes, why are you going this way? I don't know. I said, usually this is the way I go. He goes, what road you trying to get to? So I'm looking at him. I'm like, this is where it starts triggering in my brain. It's usually a question about exhaust, windows, or front plate. This isn't that. I've never had this before. So I said, I honestly don't know the road I'm trying to get to, which was, because I'm on the spot.
Right.
Jericho Turnpike is where I was trying to go. And I said, but I'm trying to get to the road that brings you to where the new 7-Eleven is and the redone field. He goes, oh, we were just talking about that. I look at him, I go, who? It's just you and I. He goes, it's weird. I smell something on your breath. He's like, you've been doing a little bit of drinking tonight? How drunk are you?
Right.
I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, I haven't had a drop. And I knew I didn't.
And that's a great question. That's a standard question, right? How
I
drunk are you? So we already assume you're drunk. We know you're drunk, So now it's just a question of are you a little drunk or a lot drunk?
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here
so
having
not drunk wasn't an answer to that question.
Yeah.
We're past that.
Yeah. I'm sitting here having a full conversation with him, like articulate, not stuttering. I'm looking him in the eye.
Right.
And he just goes, how drunk are you? I said, actually, officer, I said, I haven't had a drop of alcohol tonight. He goes, yeah, it's weird because I smell it on your breath. I said, I don't know what you smell.
Right.
I said, because I haven't drank any alcohol. He goes, you want to get out of the car? Sure, I'll get out of the car. Got out of the car. He goes, come to the back of your car in the front of mine.
So he gave you the performance test.
Yep. I said, just so you know, my keys are still on the roof, so I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
He goes, okay. Just did the pen test on me. He goes, you are not drunk. I go, I told you.
That.
I said, I don't know what you're smelling.
Right. Yeah, wow.
I said, is it cologne? Do you want to lean in on me and sniff? He
Right.
goes, no. He's like, I also saw a light when you turned out of Rust and Gold. Light up your face. I hope, were you on your phone? I go, come on, man. Really? We're really grabbing at straws right now?
Right.
I'm like, it was my Apple Watch. I probably got a text message and it lit up my face.
Right.
I said, he goes, all right, you're good to go, man.
Wow.
I was like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, you're really just trying to pin anything on me. Another time, which you'll like, which was the don't deny, don't say yes, just neutral.
Right.
I did it without even knowing.
Okay, good. You're learning.
I was leaving this girl's house at, it was like 3 a.m.
Right.
Leaving her house at 3 a.m.
All right. Doing that walk of shame.
Yeah, some type of shame.
That was a walk of pride.
Walk of pride.
It was a walk of pride, but I wanted to get the fuck home. I was tired.
All right, good.
Well, I was super tired. So
right.
I'm driving down Hempstead Turnpike.
Okay.
And I'm driving down, and this kid in a Subaru next to me is like, he's got his girl in his car. I can see he's like trying to impress her, and they're having fun. And he keeps flooring it next to me and dropping back, almost to try to get me to race.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
and Hempstead Turnpike's a big, that's
I'm
a
like,
big.
straightaway.
I'm like, what is this kid
Race.
doing? Can you leave me alone? It's 3 a.m. I want to get home.
Right.
So he keeps doing it. So now I'm getting irritated. Now I'm like, please, I'm waving him off. I'm like, go away, dude. I'm not racing you. So I'm right by the Best Buy going east. I'm going towards the 135. I'm right by the Best Buy. And finally, this kid just pisses me off to no extent. So I go, fuck this kid. I downshift. I go to third, and I floor it. Blow him away. I must have floored it for 2 seconds. Blew him out of the water.
Right.
2 cops sitting right at the corner. I went, fuck. I go straight. He turns down a side road. I see one go after him, and one comes after me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Now they're going to think we were street racing.
Right, sure.
So I pull over. Officer comes up. How you doing, man? How's everything going? I said, going well, officer. This and that. Same thing. License, registration. Do you mind if I grab it? Blah, blah, blah. And I pulled into a parking lot so he wouldn't be on the road.
Right.
But I don't know why people pull over in the fucking road. Right. That drives me nuts. So he goes, hey, you're going pretty quick back there, this and that. I said, it's loud exhaust. I wasn't going that fast. I said, but, the car is loud. He just goes, yeah. He's like, you and that other car, you guys were, doing a little racing. I said, what car? I don't know what you're talking about. I said, I'm trying to just get home. I said, I'm just trying to get home. I don't know. He's like, oh, well, my partner got another car. I said, well, I don't know who your partner got, but I'm just driving home.
Right.
So he goes, you want to wait here for me? Sure. Goes 45 minutes. 2 other cop cars pull up. I'm like, oh, that's it. I said, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Once they bring the other cops in, I said, that's usually, you mind getting out of the
now.
car,
Yeah.
this and that. So he comes over to me and he goes, you're clean, man. He goes, you don't have anything on your license. And I showed him my PBA cards. And he just goes, listen, I don't know who the other kid was. I said, I don't know what you're talking about, other kid. It's just me. I'm driving home. So I'm just trying to get home. He
Mhm.
goes, all right. He goes, listen, on the side note, for real. He goes, I see a lot of people get into accidents on here, smash into poles.
There have been. Yeah.
He goes, bad accidents because they're going too quick.
Right.
Slow it down. Just
Right.
slow it down.
Right.
He's like, you're good to go, man. Go.
Okay.
I was like, damn. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
woo. They
My
had me,
lucky day.
I was like, they had me dead to rights. I was so
Wow.
shook for a hot second.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was just one of those.
Yeah.
I lost my shit for 5 seconds.
Yep.
Just like you said, just a small
yeah,
change in judgment that just could have got my car taken away.
right.
Could have
Sure, yeah.
could have taken my license away for
Right.
racing.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
just you never know what kind of goes on sometimes. Like you said, people in their dark. Not that I was in my darkest day, but people in their darkest day just making just one incorrect little thing and how that could
Right.
just screw
Yep.
up everything going
Yep.
forward.
one bad decision. Yeah.
It's interesting, especially.
We're always one bad decision away from calamity, right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
like-
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
the transitional point for that is it's interesting to bad decision. What do you think with gym owners right now going through everything they were going through? I know you said you wanted to, we're going to touch on this.
Yeah.
I think there's a great position to do so.
Yeah.
One bad decision. I mean, I don't think it's a bad decision, but I know the government will think it's a bad decision if the gym owners just say screw you and we open.
Yeah. Well, I think there are lawsuits filed. There's at least
there's
one.
a class
one-
action with
yeah.
like 3,000 people.
As John, who's
You know.
one of the owners of a gym.
Right. Yeah. No, it's it's funny because so many other gyms across the country and other states are open, and we get strip clubs open.
That's what's
we have all
crazy
these-
to me.
Yeah, it's kind of wacky.
How can you sit there and allow a Target and a Walmart to open with
Yeah.
way more people than there would
Yeah.
be in a gym, and,
Yeah.
and a lot of times on top of each other. You know how many times I go into Target and people are brushing each other in the
Right,
shoulder,
sure,
right next to
yeah.
each other. Nobody gives a shit.
Nope.
Mhm.
It's crazy. I think I think Cuomo's view is that the exhaling of the potential particles in a gym is going to be more than in a Walmart or something like that.
But
I
what
think
about the
that's
masks?
theory about it? Well, you'd have to wear masks, I guess. Which a lot of people don't necessarily want to do in a gym, and
I don't want to. I mean,
Right.
I know we've all hit heavy
Right.
sets at Bev's in
Yeah.
the middle of the summer, and
Yeah.
although it's cool sometimes in there, a lot of times it's hot.
Yeah.
And I can't breathe after a heavy set to begin with.
Right.
I'm not going to sit here and act like like an ass and say because you see all the people online they put the oxygenation of air
Right.
on the finger, and then
Right.
they'll put masks on. They'll show
Yeah.
you it doesn't make a difference. I'm like, but you're not exercising.
Right.
You're also not running. You're also not hitting heavy weights
Right.
where you're exerting a lot of
Right.
energy.
Right.
You're still breathing through a filter, so any inhale you're doing, sure, the oxygen's going through the holes,
Right.
but you're not be able to vacuum in as much air in because of the little fucking fibers in the way.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some safety there. Look, I'm surprised that it's gone as long as it has. At
Mhm.
some point, I did talk to Steve not too long ago, and
And I checked in with him just to say hey.
just to say hey, and we're not going anywhere. We're looking forward to coming back to the gym, and no worries about that. There are those, and I don't think Bev's is one of them, but there are gyms I think that will have to worry ultimately as people become acclimated to training at home. Some of the surveys are saying that people will start to kind of bifurcate. They'll spend some time at the gym and some time training at home in sort of the new world. It's definitely going to be a different world. As somebody who trains in loves training at the gym, I'm not wild about training in my basement. You've seen it. I posted some video and some pictures of my basement training. I'm limited, in terms of how much weight I have down there. So I've had to use, like John and I have talked about, there are other factors besides just resistance. I wrote an article recently. It's on Muscular Development Magazine. I've been writing a column for MD for 20 years.
That's awesome.
So anybody who wants to find me, MD is a good place to find me. Instagram, Rick Collins ESQ. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. But I wrote an article basically, particularly for older guys, that we use that term progressive resistance, and it's not really, resistance. It makes me think of like that if you back off on the poundages, that you can't get intensity. It's really intensity is the factor, and resistance is one factor to get to intensity.
Yeah.
If you're pushing heavy weight, you are going to, stimulate muscle fibers. You're going to get muscle growth. But that's not the only way to do it. And particularly after 40 years of hammering your joints, at some point, there might be it's worth at least investigating those other ways. And training at home has sort of forced that because you don't have the same resistance to use. So you can do, time under tension, shorter sets, more volume. I'm doing more sets at home than I would do at the gym, recognizing that it's less resistance. So I got to make it up in other ways. So I'm doing more reps. I'm doing shorter
Breaks,
rests
yeah.
between. I'm doing, more sets,
How do your joints feel?
they feel good.
They feel rested?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
feel rested. And actually, one thing that I'm doing is I'm training more frequently each body part. So, usually we wind up doing, for a while I was doing like one heavy, one light each week, which is good. But you also reach a point, particularly if you're a professional, you have other things going on, and I got a busy schedule. So, it wound up maybe once a week, once chest, back, shoulders, legs, So I'm not sure that that's really enough. I really feel like, everybody's different too. Some people might be overtrained with that. I'm actually training each body part twice a week now, or at least maybe once every 4 days. And even though I have less weight, I'm not really losing size from it. I think by the more frequent training and the higher volume, it seems to work. So some of the things that I'm learning about, because I think mentally, not that I was ever a power lifter, but my best bench was like 440. So I've, I like heavier weight.
I do too. I like pushing
I
heavy.
like that feeling. And so I always felt like if I compromised a little on that I'm slacking, I gotta. But I think I found that, you can increase other variables of intensity to make up for that when you're forced. I don't have an Olympic bar, so I'm not going to be. I don't have a leg press, and there are things that I'm just not going to be able to do at home. So, but I'm making up for it in other ways, and I think that works. And it also, forces you to stay on a good diet because you're still in a mindset that you're staying in your physical fitness. I have friends and some even guys that we know from the gym who are basically just they're home and they're like they stopped. They've lost.
That was me in the beginning. That was me in the beginning of quarantine. I was drinking every day, playing Xbox, just chilling. Wasn't really motivated to do anything. For me, I've been doing a lot of different videos outside of the fitness industry. So I especially this year, it was almost like an establishment to get into other areas.
Right.
And then this kind of happened, and it shut down like 50% of my income.
Yeah.
And then everything else shut down. So then it went from 50 to 0.
Right.
So once the gym shut down, I knew something was happening that was really going to be sucky.
Right.
So my last real job was going to the Arnold at that time. So for me, I just kind of got super unmotivated. Didn't feel like posting on Instagram. Didn't feel like doing anything. I was just weren't doing the podcast.
Right.
I just got the puppy, and although that was great, I also explained to people having a dog that you're around 24/7, a puppy especially, is a lot of work. A lot of work.
Yeah.
He's worth the work.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work, and
Right.
whereas somebody could just put the dog in the crate and leave, I could put the dog in the crate and I had nowhere to go. So he'd be screaming in the other room before he was adjusted to it, and I'd be sitting in my living room just like putting chopsticks in my ears. I'm like, I got to get out of this house. So, I drink during the day, play Xbox with my buddies that weren't at work either, and we would just,
Right.
it was very stagnant. There was nothing.
Yeah.
And then I said, I can't sit here anymore.
No.
I can't sit here and do nothing anymore. So the last 2 weeks, I tightened up my diet again. Over the last month, I've been acquiring gym equipment that I keep saying. So I have a full Rogue rack coming in the next week or so.
Okay.
It's pretty heavy duty.
Yeah.
It's
That's
sick.
real.
big boy
It's
rack.
sick. It's
Yeah.
sick. I got a landmine attachment for it. I got the single leg roller to do Bulgarian split squats on it.
Wow. Okay.
I bought a 123-pound kettlebell that I have. I have a bunch of other kettlebells that I've had. I bought a Sorinex power bar, and I bought 405 pounds of 45-pound
So
plates.
you got a home gym. You got
I'm
a
ready-
full. Yeah, you're ready.
I looked
to
at
roll.
it. I looked at it as a multiple thing. I looked at it as if they're going to do a potential second shutdown, which I have a feeling they're going to try. I don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah.
I
Well,
feel-
we're not even out of the first. We're
what I'm
still
saying.
on
what
shutdown.
I'm
I'm not
saying.
sure that there's.
I'm saying fall wise. I have a
Yeah.
feeling they're going to try to pull some shit.
You think they'll open before?
The gyms?
Yeah.
John doesn't think they were opening until January.
I feel like they're going to push it to January.
Look, they've shut down Broadway. All the Broadway shows, and gyms are suffering. The courts are a huge problem. There's now a lawsuit by court officers to try to not open the courts the way the chief judge wants to open them. And so, you've got there's a spillover. I mean, the spillover on the economy is devastating because you got, look at even Manhattan. You've got Broadway's shut down till January at the earliest. That would be
Mhm.
the earliest it opens up again. Hopefully, that's not what happens with gyms, but
And just because it's open for Broadway, they haven't been rehearsing.
right.
And doesn't mean that people are
Yes.
going to go.
Like,
Correct.
yeah.
When are the tourists going to come back, right? So, but now that that's shut down, well, what happens? Restaurant Row, 46th Street, all of those restaurants, they survive on pre-theater, post-theater meals from the tourists who come from Wisconsin and Ohio.
I think McDonald's in Times Square closed their doors for good.
Did they? Wow.
It
And
was
nobody wants to come, especially with all the fucking
Yeah.
shootings right now,
It
too.
was there or the Burger.
Right.
It was
And
one of the two
that's- yes.
big ones in the Times Square. One of them closed their doors for good. They said we're done.
Right. So that's the spillover, right?
Yeah.
So the Broadway's closed and now all the restaurants closed. And if the tourists aren't coming and the restaurants are closed, all the little bodegas and Dunkin' Donuts that catered to, they're all going. It's definitely a different world, I think, that we're going to need to adapt to. I'm glad I grew up in the age when
I'm
I
jealous.
rode my bicycle all
I'm
over
jealous.
Mineola
Yeah.
and Queens without a helmet, and so it was a different world. And
thoroughly jealous. I really am.
yeah, it was a good time to grow up.
I grew up I was born 91. I grew up
Mm.
literally like right at the last kids going outside.
Right,
Yeah.
right, which you have to be happy about.
I am.
know?
I used to go to school all day, and I'd come I lived in West Hempstead for a long
Right.
time, and then my mom moved us to Melville while we were
Right.
waiting for our Plainview house to be built. And I was in Melville for like 3.5, 4 years. I was only supposed to be there for one.
Right.
Mm.
So because the building took too long to make, so I made all friends in Melville. But I was in Avalon Court behind Costco
Right.
in Melville.
Yeah.
I was right there, and I'd go to Dix Hill school districts, and every time we would come back from school, all the kids and everyone would be out in the neighborhood all afternoon, riding their
Yeah.
bikes, playing Pokemon
Right,
cards.
Right.
And it was different. Now you don't see, and now with quarantine, you see everybody out,
Yeah.
which is ironic.
Right.
That's what it took to get
Sooner-
everyone to go fucking out. To be
Don't
told,
go outside.
yeah,
Right.
stay inside.
Yeah.
Which I didn't agree with that to begin with, but like
Yeah.
stay inside, don't go outside this
Right.
and that, and everyone's
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah. That's stay inside is how do you keep the economy going? How do you keep dry cleaners? How do you keep restaurants? How do you keep anybody going?
It's scary.
Yeah.
It is. And I think we are going to enter a different world in terms of just how we work, whether we work from home or whether we work in offices. For those people who worked at home, it might not be as big of a change, but
Working
for
at home
employers,
sucks.
yeah, some people seem to like the idea. Some don't, some do. But I think there were certainly employers up until now. There were certainly employers who said, "I'm not going to let people work from home because they won't work as hard. Who knows what they're doing? They could be, sunning themselves in the backyard, and we won't know." So there was resistance from many employers to allow working from home. This lockdown quarantine came, and now suddenly you had to allow people to work from home. So that's what they did. And I think a lot of employers now realize, hey, it's not so bad. Maybe it's okay. We're looking at our numbers, and people are doing what they're supposed to be doing at home. This isn't the end of the world. And now wait a minute. So if we let them stay working at home, instead of having all these little cubicles that we're paying
And the overhead for
Yeah.
lease.
the 3 floors of our lease in the Empire State Building for all these cubicles, if we let all those workers work from home, they'll pay their own overhead in their houses, and we can do 1 floor instead of 3, just have the main bosses and a nice conference room, and give up 2 of those floors. We'll save $1 million a year. So I think now you're going to see, particularly the big cities like Manhattan and others, where you're going to see a flood of available commercial real estate as people begin to allow more and more workers to work from home, and that'll where the tax dollar is going to come from to support all the services of the fire department, the police department, who's picking up the garbage, who's getting paid for all these things, social services. And so it's going to be a changed world. I think, you say working at home sucks, and there certainly are aspects of it. I think we become less social in nature. the interaction in person. I saw, you had a guest last week,
Jim, yeah.
who was sort of talking about the diminishing skill level of interpersonal contact abilities. And you're seeing that when we live in our phones and we use acronyms for everything, and it's, LOL, and, we're living in a
Mhm.
world where, full sentences are less common,
Drives
where
me nuts.
people don't even want to talk on the phone. Young people
Yeah.
it's like, why are you calling me? Text me. It's like, because it's, we're losing the nuance
Mhm.
in interacting with each other. It's hard to tell sometimes. There was a comedy show, there was a skit I saw not too long ago where two guys are sitting in separate houses, and one guy's playing video games, and the other guy.
Oh, Key and Peele.
I think it was Key
Yeah.
and
Key
Peele,
and Peele,
right?
yeah.
And he's like,
he's like, yo, we going to the bar?
we going to the bar tonight? It's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. He
You
goes,
know,
what the
it's-
fuck you mean, whatever?
Whatever. What? And so he's getting angrier and angrier. Those guys are hilarious.
Yeah.
He's getting angrier and angrier. Jordan Peele is like blown up now.
Yeah.
But it just, because you can't get the nuance, the intention, the inflection in a text. Whatever. What? And it was
Welcome
He's
to,
not even thinking about
welcome
it.
to
Yeah.
dating nowadays.
I
It's
can't even imagine.
horrendous.
I can't even imagine.
Horrendous to try to, especially internet date, like going on the apps to date people and
Right.
just,
Mm.
the first.
But that is how else would you meet people now?
Yeah, I mean, listen,
Especially working from home.
my last-
You're not in school.
I was set up with my
Bars
last
are
girlfriend from a
closed.
year ago. And everyone's wearing a mask. You don't know who's attractive anymore.
Right, yeah.
A year ago, I was set up with my
That's
ex.
that's another meme where they take off the mask.
Yes.
And it's it's a dude, or
Yeah,
it's But
I'm gonna make that.
That was
I'm
it.
gonna have John make that. It's I've met a lot of my significant others through social,
Right.
like past relationships. My
Right.
most recent one, my last one, a year ago, I was introduced to her. But all the other ones, it was like I saw an attractive girl online, and as a guy, that's kind of what you do now. You
Right.
just you follow her, you see if she
Right.
follows you back, you talk
Right.
to her a little bit, see if
Right.
the vibe is there, and then you say, hey, you want to go grab a drink sometime or go get food. But regardless, it's just the younger the females I see,
Mhm.
the worse they are at just speaking, and has nothing to do with just speaking on text, or they don't even use the phone to call.
Right.
It's speaking in general.
Right.
Just zero grammatical skills.
Right.
Zero, when you're in person, ability to have eye contact or just hold a conversation. You message a person that you both, let's say you swipe right, you like, this girl liked you and you like her.
Right.
Now you guys are talking, and what's the first thing? Hey, what's going on? I'll open up. Hey, how's everything going? Nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. What's going on? Nothing much, you. It's like, oh God.
Brilliant, scintillating
Really?
conversation.
Wow, I
Yeah.
guess I'm just one of 500 that are messaging you right now, and
Yeah.
and you just
Yeah.
copy and pasting every fucking response. It's
it's
tough.
a different, certainly communication skills is different, but even sort of what's acceptable in terms of sort of self preoccupation has changed completely. Back in the day, if a guy was in a gym taking pictures of himself, in the gym, unless it's one thing if you're taking pictures of a pro bodybuilder, what
Or
you do,
they had
things like that.
they had a Nikki Rizzles taking photos of them, and they
Well,
weren't a pro.
that's well, yeah. but like, just like some guy with a 16-inch arm who's just like with his shirt off posing in the gym would have been looked at as something very unusual. Now it's sort of very usual.
Well, imagine being the first guy to take a gym selfie. You know what I mean?
Right,
Just
yeah.
look in the mirror and goes, hold on a second.
Yeah, wow, that looks great.
I heard Rick Collins on the Voice and Rizzles podcast talking about light cascading.
We're going to get these candles.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've seen it all at Bev's, but I've seen it especially. I have a video I'll have to show you after this of these kids like rail skinny,
Right.
taking their shirts off at Bev's.
Yeah, no,
I'm not. It's not. They weren't regulars. These are
Yeah.
day pass kids taking their shirts off at Bev's and posing back to back, like flexing with each
Right,
other.
yeah.
And I pan the camera from them over to Max Charles sitting down, and he's just like this,
Yeah.
shaking his head. I'm like, oh, what's the matter, Max? I said, go over there and show him how it's done.
There was a girl I saw maybe a year or two ago who literally, it was like an hour that she was just standing there in sort of a 3/4 position, taking pictures of her butt and and her backside, and it's like, if after 25 minutes you haven't gotten the perfect selfie, it's probably
It's not gonna happen.
maybe do it another day.
Yeah.
Rest now and come back and do it. Yeah.
She was doing the Atlas
But-
workout. She
Maybe-
was
yeah.
doing forced flexes and holding.
Yeah, there wasn't. Yeah, no.
Maybe she got stuck. She had a spine issue.
Maybe, yeah, yes. Some sort of scoliosis.
Yeah.
And here we are laughing.
I
At
know,
it.
right?
I'm sorry, that was very mean.
Listen, she go to Derlin.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
There's a plug for Derlin.
Yeah, I love Derlin. Derlin's great.
He's the man.
I am too. He was supposed to set us up with some people, hopefully post-virus, about getting some people in for the podcast that would be interested in coming on.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Derlin's great. My camp is great. We've got, Bev's is filled
plethora.
with
Yeah.
a true plethora of wisdom and healing.
and we have one of the A1 gentlemen sitting here today with us.
Yeah.
Oh, who is that, John?
No,
Kenji.
he's not a gentleman. He's
Yes.
like 5 years old.
There you go.
Yeah.
But
So-
listen, Rick, absolute pleasure for having you.
Well,
Seriously.
thank you for having me. This
Oh,
was
of course,
great,
man.
Look, I do a lot of lectures and I need PowerPoints and there are points to cover. I said for this one, I told you, it's just three guys talking. Let's just chill and
That's how we
hang
do it.
out.
We do it best. That's
I
it.
don't usually do the T-shirt.
I love it.
And
Yeah.
and hat and
Under Armour, send the
yeah,
check.
There you go. Yeah, I'm doing all the advertising. I'm actually doing, as you can see, a little of the quarantine beard.
Looks good.
Hey, man, I'm all for it.
I don't
I'm
know.
all for it.
Yeah, well, you
We got to get you the grave before shave. Nikki put me onto that
You know
stuff.
what?
Really?
You know
It
what?
works unbelievable.
I'll tell you what. We haven't plugged them in a while, and we have a whole
Tame the
box
Beast.
full. We have Tame the Beast products that they sent us a ton.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing some
So,
stuff with them for the
I'm
podcast.
not doing anything for this. Let's
I got
just sort
you.
of
Let
let it
me teach you.
get
Yeah.
crazy.
I'll take
So
you under my wing.
I'm ready to go.
I got you before
what
you
am I
leave.
gonna
We're
do,
gonna
like
hook
a
you
ZZ Top thing? And when I'm
We're
done?
gonna get
It's
you to
just the beginning.
It's the beginning.
we're gonna get you to braid it for every PR that you get, and
Wow.
every new personal record.
years ago, and I'll finish with this story. Years and years ago, I did a talk show because I was doing some acting at the time.
Hmm.
And I was in the first season. I don't know if you know this. I was in the first season of The Sopranos. I had a little tiny walk-on where I played a cop, a uniformed cop, a New Jersey state trooper who arrests the young Uncle Junior and Johnny Boy Soprano, which was Tony's father.
Now I gotta watch
in this
it.
flashback. It's in episode 7. I'm on for like 2 seconds. It took me 2 days to shoot it. We were there 2 days shooting it for like 2 seconds of film time. But I arrest Uncle Junior and I arrest his father. And I used to do some acting at the time, and I was in some movies and stuff. You could look me up on IMDb at some point.
Let's go.
But I wound up doing a talk show with a guy named Captain Lou Albano. I don't know if you remember him, but he was a professional wrestler. He was in. There was a singer called Cyndi Lauper, and it was "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" was her song back in the
Yeah.
80s,
Mhm.
and the video was him as her father in like a white athletic shirt, and this. He was a pro wrestler, and he used to have a beard like this, but he would put a rubber band in it. So there was like his beard would be hanging with like this rubber band. That was his trademark look, Captain Lou Albano. And he was on this talk show with me. And during commercial breaks, he insisted on, because I was a bigger guy, he insisted on showing me some of his moves, his patented wrestling moves. And I'm wearing a suit jacket. So during commercial breaks, I'm rolling around on the floor with Captain Lou Albano with this rubber band in his.
Try to take the rubber band out.
and then trying to come back on, like make myself look presentable,
Not sweaty.
right? Exactly, and come back for it. But that was the look. So whenever I think about this beard that I'm growing, I'm wondering at some point will I be able to now. If we go back to court, and courts are closed now, basically, which you talk about gyms being closed, courts being closed is also a huge problem for lawyers.
Can't convict anybody,
Yeah.
right?
There's no grand juries. There's no trials. There probably, you talk about January, there probably won't be any trials till January in courtrooms.
I know with the class action, it was recent. They said a judge would listen to both sides and actually try to make a decision.
Yeah.
But who knows what'll happen
It's crazy. So
in February.
okay.
No, they didn't give us a date, but
Yeah, February is probably when they'll say.
So I will say, and we'll play with the beard for a while, but probably when I go back, when the courts open again, I'll clean up a little bit.
That's all right.
Beard wise.
Even still, you
But-
should use a beard oil in any of it.
So
keeps-
you've
keeps-
got some products.
I have products I'm gonna
okay,
give you.
So
Yep.
you're gonna
Beard
upgrade
oil,
products.
beard oil just keeps
Yeah,
the
'cause I've done
dandruff from
nothing. I'm
underneath
just-
building up.
Yeah,
and
Really? Okay.
It gets the actual hair softer.
See that I'm
Yeah.
learning.
So
yeah.
beard oil before bed. Then you
Beard
put
oil
the
before
beard
bed.
butter in there before you go out somewhere because it's a cream that'll.
Butter.
So the butter is like an oil and a cream mixed together.
Mm-hmm.
So the cream will help keep it in place, and then the oil will re-moisturize it. So because
I do the beard oil when I grow it. I had a longer beard for a little while. When I grow it, and even now it's stubble, I still put it on. I'll do a couple like a handful of beard oil,
Right.
and I'll
Yeah.
rub it into my beard out of the shower just to keep it
Wow.
moisturized, so you don't get scratchy and itchy underneath,
Okay.
flaky.
All right. So beard oil it is. Let's
Yeah,
do it.
I got you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. This is a
Happy to
lot
have you
of
on.
fun. This was just relaxed and having some laughs.
Awesome.
Good.
I'm gonna have John kick this outro,
So I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in this week's episode of The Voice.
and Rizzles joined by our man.
Rick Collins. Thanks, brothers.
Hit him up if you need him, but hopefully you won't.
Fantastic.
Peace.